Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and Rich Lopp here for the Awakening Experience. How to prevent and go through tower moments. What's going on, Rich?
What's up, dude?
It's good to be back with you, man.
Yeah, loving it.
Like, I love doing this show, dude.
It's fun.
How you been feeling?
I'm still settling in and adjusting. Going through that period of change where you're really uncomfortable and you're just waiting for it to become comfortable. You know, that's a big part of the journey that I was given the privilege to not have to deal with for a while, and now I'm being put through it again, but I'm liking it. I'm digging Southern California. It's not nearly as bad as I had heard, all the horrible horror stories that I had heard and whatnot. Maybe it is in some other places, but so far it seems a lot more pleasant than I thought it would be.
That was going to be my question, as I was like, how are you handling SoCal? What do you feel? Because I was thinking about you this weekend, and I was looking at places with Sophia, and I was just like, that's always weird when you come into a new state. Just everything from the fucking traffic lights and how they work and how different states, it's all different. But does this place feel different, or does it feel kind of like any other place?
Well, it feels very different from Las Vegas. But the funny thing is, though, where I am in Chino Hills, that's kind of a rural area.
Yeah.
And it's a lot quieter.
Right.
And it gives off a lot more of a small town kind of vibe, which I didn't expect for California, because every time I had visited with my wife and her family in places like RSM and whatnot, it's really crowded. But where we're at, it's real quiet. And it's there's a lot of nature. It's just very different all the way around. Totally different feeling.
It feels the opposite of some sort of tower moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is a really, we actually took this from a viewer suggestion, really kind of breaking down how to teach people in life, not only like using tarot and what those moments are actually in reality, how to prevent them, but also they're not fully preventable too in life. They sometimes are a good thing, they're a bad thing, but also how to get through them. And especially, I would ask, as we start this with you, what do you, when you see the tarot card just come down as a tarot reader, what is that really significant? What is it doing for you as a reader? Like, is it a card that you pay attention to a lot, or is it a card that you look at it as, this is a good thing and this thing's changing? I don't know. What's your perspective on when you see a tower card in a reading for you?
Well, it's almost always, I'm trying to think of a time where it may not be, but for the most part, like for argument's sake, 99% of the time, it's always a necessary change that needs to happen. And it's usually a change we don't want to make. Yeah. We're too afraid or whatever the case may be, and we ignore it. Because if you look at that tower card, it obviously is lightning striking the tower. And, and the two people are falling out of it, and it represents sudden, abrupt, and unexpected change. But it's really not all that unexpected. Like, you think about it, when you're in the tower, lightning doesn't just strike out of the clear blue sunshiny sky, you know? Like, you see the storm clouds rolling in, and you hear the thunder, and the wind starts blowing. You're given warnings, and we ignore it, and we ignore it, and we ignore it. And I look at that as almost every time it's time for you to make a transition, the universe will give you like a window of time to get it done. And we'll be giving you all the signs and all the synchronicities, and we'll be nudging you in the direction that you need to go. And if we ignore it and ignore it and ignore it, the universe is like, okay, well, all right, fuck it. All right, I got to make this decision for you. And then it'll just kick the tower over on you. And yeah, it can be pretty ugly, but it can almost always be turned into a good thing.
Yeah, so I know you do a lot with love readings. I have the tower card up. I had it when you were up. It's like up with me. I think you put out the best description of it. Is there's so much happening that's already being shown. It's a black card, it's dark. It's not like it just happens out of nowhere. You say it best. It's not like just out of nowhere. I guess unless it's like a Chinese weather balloon, right? Yeah. But even that's not coming down like, and breaking the whole thing apart. So, I mean, there's maybe ways people look at that in another way, and I do too, but it's just like the real essence of it to me too is the interesting part that the devil card comes right before it. And that is a card of being locked in, whether it's desire, whether, I mean, you know, you can look at that card as going into a dark place. It kind of makes sense that the tower would follow after the devil. Mm-hmm. You already feel trapped too. And I feel like the tower to me is always when you felt trapped for long enough that it's like, I think there is the relief that the star card represents after it. I always like to look at cards the right before it and the card after, and it makes so much sense to me that in the middle of it, yeah, it looks like the people falling out of the tower are scared to some, but at the same time, it could be relieved too, right? Like sometimes we get in moments where it's like, oh my God, like I don't have anything left to give to this. And I feel like that's what it is. It's like if you've already, sometimes it can be a positive thing too, where you've just peaked out in something and it's like, you know what? You've got to evolve. You know, I think it's a card of evolution. Like it's like, this has to evolve, or it's causing bad for others or causing bad for reality. But love is the one that I think it's a very hard one to interpret, right? Because it could be an evolutionary card of like a bad argument that you learn to maybe stop doing. I don't know. You're the one that's the master of the love and the tarot.
Well, in a love reading, I think one of the first things that you're going to think when you see that tower card is obviously the relationship coming to an end. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the relationship coming to an end. It could be a big fight, or maybe it could be something within your life. Like maybe you and your husband or wife or whatever could lose your house or something like that, and that could take you to a new chapter. But usually it is the relationship coming to an end. And like I said, in almost every case, there's anticipation that it's coming. And even I think in some of the most subtlest instances, it's usually like a lack of trust. You know, how many people come to me for readings and they're asking questions like, can I trust the person that I've been with for 5 years? I'm like, dude, if you're willing to pay me to find out whether or not you can trust the person you've been with for 5 years, does that sound like the person the universe picked for you?
Right.
That would make the universe kind of fucking stupid, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It picked a person to be your life partner that you don't even know if you can trust.
Right.
So that lack of trust, that's even the most subtle indication that it's coming, because that energy is going to build up and build up. And when do you ever see a couple like one person doesn't trust the other? When do you ever see them just start trusting them?
Yeah, it just doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. It builds up and builds up and builds up until it pops.
Well, last week we were talking about, especially, and I think on the other episode, but it's like it's frequency exchange. I feel like the tower is when the frequencies are not aligned at all, right? It's almost like you could just keep going in a direction that's not good. Like it would be like a criminal that keeps doing like weird shit constantly, and it's finally that moment when their little criminal enterprise of stealing bikes, right, just goes down. You know what I mean? Like it where it's been building. You know, you've already had the cops come to you, like you said, the warnings. The warnings come with the tower prior. It's like, okay, the cops are on to you, and they give you a warning. You know. And it's like, or a car accident, you know, it could be definitely like oh shit, right? Like the warnings already come from you. You already slid out. Your tires already gone flat a couple times, and you keep patching it up, and you're not dealing with things. It's kind of a card where I feel like there's also a bit of laziness that finally shocks the person to be like, hey, we're going to get you alive again, but we're going to get you alive by pulling away the comfort zone that is not in alignment. Because I feel like we can be comfortable in places that are in alignment, and that's a positive thing. But I feel like the areas in life that are just not in our frequency and alignment, just, how long can you push that? And I think the tower card to prevent it is using things like the signs you say. Or also, I don't know what it is, and I don't know if maybe you can answer this too. What is it with people where you could be staring right in your face at a tower moment in your life and just keep looking at it until it fucking happens, and it gets worse, I feel, the longer you look at it. Why is that?
Somebody gave me a really good analogy one time. Most people, when asked what they would do if they were stranded on a desert island, Imagine, plane crashed, you're stranded on a desert island, and you know that if you stay there, you're going to die. Would you take off swimming out into the unknown? You might die, but you might find a boat. You might find land. You don't know. Most people would rather stay there knowing that they're going to die because they can anticipate the future than to swim out into the unknown. Most people are so afraid of the unknown. So that's why, like, a perfect example is where I am right now. I started feeling the nudge to move in a different direction a year ago. I was feeling the nudge. I didn't know what to do or how to do it. And I spent all of 2022, what I like to say, knocking on new doors, trying new things. Not comfortable. I wasn't having fun with it. I just knew that I had to. And I'd be willing to bet you that if I hadn't done that, if I would have ignored it, best case scenario, I would have just completely plateaued and slowly started falling off. Worst case scenario, something would have happened to completely bring everything to an end. So when you start feeling that nudge that it's time to quit that job, or it's time to walk away from that relationship, or it's time to go expand your career and do something. If you just sit there and stare at it because you're afraid of the unknown,
right?
I think that's what it all boils down to, is fear of the unknown.
Yeah, because I also feel that it does have a laziness to it, because if you think of usually it's like the idea of like a king, and that could be a king of wands, it could be a king of pentacles, it could be a king of swords, it could be a king of any king coming down, because you usually see the crown that's falling down with it, right? Mm-hmm. Where we could sit on a throne for so long, but there's got to be that nudge, that evolution in life. So tower moments to me are when we, as a species, as an individual in our life, where we just want to stay to where we don't want to evolve anymore. It's like, it's the spiritual card to me in the essence of like, oh, I'm gonna get you in the right place, but it's not gonna be fun because you've chosen at this moment in your life to not want to do it. It reminds me, I had a painstaking issue with school. Like, I was an A+ student until high school. Once high school started, and socializing and girls and sports, I was like, fuck this shit. But when it came to homework or even showing up to class, I sat there knowing I'm not going to class. Now, I get the warnings from the vice principal. If you don't go, you're not going to graduate, and you're going to have to go to that fucking alternative high school, right? But because I played sports, it was one of those weird things. I showed up to that all the time. That didn't fall on me. But it was one of those moments to where it was like, I just knowingly knew. It's like, it doesn't feel good either. It's like, I know I'm not doing the homework. I know I'm going to fail the class, but I'm going out and smoking weed with my buddies. And even though I feel that feels good, that thing is circling inside of me that, this shit, I have no idea what's coming next, but I know it's a tower moment. I know it's all going to come down. I ended up having to go to summer school after graduating, which was the worst feeling of like, everybody's graduating, right? I'm graduating, and then, nope, I have to go to summer school after. Mm-hmm. That's a fucking hardcore fucked up thing, because I'm watching it happen.
Yeah. It can also too, yes, absolutely, it has a laziness connotation attached to it, but also too, this is one thing that I try to prepare a lot of people for when I'm talking about the manifestation path. And in the manifestation series I'm going to be doing on High Vibe TV, I'm going to dive deeper into this. But a lot of times I don't believe it's possible to get on a real manifestation path without creating those tower moments. There are some things, as you are realigning your frequency and as you are tuning into a new reality, there's going to be some things in your life that have to be ripped away from you. They have to be.
Yeah.
You could, like, say, for example, you want to manifest money. And you get in, you start doing it, you start changing your perception, you start doing your affirmations, and you start doing it. And then next thing you know, out of nowhere, your boss starts getting this weird attitude. Like, what did I do to you? And all of a sudden, the people around you, it just seems like the vibe changes at the workplace. People are acting different. You start feeling tension building, and you feel it coming, and it builds up and builds up, and until you get called into the office and fired. Most people would say, it's over. I guess my financial success is never going to come. And it's like, no, the universe was doing you a favor because that's putting you on a path if you stay on the path and trust it.
Right.
So, yeah, there's absolutely tower moments on the manifestation journey as well.
Yeah, I feel like that they're all necessary, too, to get you to trust. Because there's something about to where maybe in the tower, if the king is falling, it is one of those moments to where if you're dealing with a king, it's on the throne. It's 100% for sure. It's in a place of trust. It's already gone through so much to get there. But it's weird. To me, I feel like the worst tower moments are when you've made it to a place in your life, in your manifestation, and then you drop back, right? It's like one of those moments where you start giving up or getting too cocky too. Because I feel like the tower card could be about like being too cocky to a place to where, you're too cocky with the magic. You're too cocky with your manifesting energy. You're too cocky to it. Like you got to be humble through the process too. I feel because that king is the one. It's very transparent. Just to show the card again, it's very transparent that it's like this whole thing's coming down, and these people are going down with it, and that crown is being shot out the top. And I always find that the most interesting card in a really interesting sense too, especially that it's the 16th card. It's like this really weird kind of like, you can look at it numerologically that it equals a 7, that there's like a spiritual essence, but it's weird that it's not something that you would, it's almost like one of those things to where it's kind of the F you God thing that most people could react to too. So it's almost a test too in your life, right? Like some things might fall in your life, but when you get too cocky, when you get too sure of yourself, it could be that too. The king has to always, in any of the tarot, has to be a good king, and has to be one that is full of whatever that element that it represents. But I feel that there is a very deep, positive spiritual essence to it, but the acceptance of that shit, I think, is the hardest. And I feel like to prevent these moments, I think, one I would say is, I think the warning signs that you put out is so important. We could feel the shit coming in. So to avoid it, it's like, why is the storm starting to roll in my life? Well, you already know. It's already always popping up. And it's whether or not we're going to start to deal with things quick. I think it's when we get, I'm going to put that on the back burner for a week. I'll deal with this tomorrow. And that becomes a pattern. That's the worst pattern. When usually it's just like that little extra goes a long way into facing something, opposed to, especially facing things I call it face to face. Like if you just face it face to face, it goes so much better. But when we don't, oh, fuck.
Yeah. You definitely, to prevent it. I mean, when you say prevent, I could be wrong, but off the top of my head, I can't think of a way to completely stop the whole process from happening. But to prevent it, what I like to do, because my second favorite card is the death card, because that is a slow, gradual ending of an old cycle, like Scorpio season,
right
before the new cycle comes in.
Yeah,
and you want to do the best you can to try to turn it into a death process. Like I was saying last year, when I started feeling the nudge, it's time to do something else with my career. It's time to move forward. I don't know how. What am I going to do? So I'm going to go and I'm going to, okay, well, let me try this thing and let me try this thing. And funny enough, the name of this show, The Awakening Experience, was one of those things that I tried. I had a podcast on another channel called The Awakening Experience.
And it towered out.
It came to a stop. But that was my way of preventing what I'm sure would have eventually been a tower moment. It was all 2022 I spent trying new things, experimenting with new things. And
I saw you were doing interviews with people and so forth. What have you learned from that experience? Because you're saying that it maybe prevented. So is it also another way of looking at something when you're trying to manifest something and you're putting everything you got into it and it's not fully clicking, but you're willing to go through the experience? And it's one of those moments where you, I guess, pull yourself out to kind of reflect.
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to say? Because that's what like to come back at it in a different way or something.
Well, that's kind of a loaded answer. As far as what I learned from that specifically, that really helped gear me up for some of the things that I'm doing now and some of the things that I'm going to be doing. Because the thing about me that a lot of people don't understand, and people get kind of confused when they meet me, is that in real life, I'm quiet.
Right.
In real life. Like when the camera's not on, I'm quiet. Like if anybody ever was to see me and Leah out somewhere, like in a public setting, she'd be the one talking to everybody and all social, and I'm the one hanging back just watching. So I'm not a social person, and communicating and talking to people that I don't know makes me really uncomfortable. And I've recognized this as a character defect that I need to work on, but there's no way to work on it other than to do it. So when I first started doing those interviews, believe it or not, I'd be sitting there shaking and sweating, so uncomfortable because I'm talking to a stranger that I don't know. And every time I did it, it got a little bit easier and a little bit easier and a little bit easier. And now, you know, it's much easier for me to sit and talk one-on-one to somebody I don't really know. And some of the things that I have coming up in my career are going to require me to do that, if you know what I mean. We've talked.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you just brought up the best point. I feel like it's fear that we've been talking about, that tarot cards can also be this huge fear of a visualization of what we think is going to happen. Like that happened to me my first time DJing, fucking sweating my balls off, shaking my hands to where as a DJ, shaking hands are not good. You're going to mess up, you're going to fucking train wreck, we call it. But I remember, and that was bad times in my life too, because I would use alcohol. I'd be like, oh, I could get a whiskey right now. The fucking bottle service girl, come over here. I'm the DJ. If I'd drink a little whiskey and just enough to just edge me out. But that doesn't work. That led to still a tower moment in my life that was, I'm going to have to be, public speaking is one of the number one biggest issues. And believe it or not, people don't know this about me. I was the most terrified public speaker on the planet. Now people would be like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Especially doing lectures or talks and talking in front of thousands of people. It's like, no, I remember 2 people just being like, and I went through panic disorder for years. And it's like, but it was the visualization of it all crumbling down. So that's where I feel like the tower is really interesting. There's 2 visualizations that are happening. The one is the signs from the universe, like you need to pay fucking attention. It's not like it's a sign when there's even the ancients always thought, you know, storms and so forth, that they're part of what's happening in life. But then there's that other negative, illusionary, fearful projection that comes into ourselves. And if we buy that too much, I see a lot of people get to the line, like, you know, somebody might go to college, have the ultimate degree, but to go do what they learn to go do, they'll be like, I can't do it. I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to keep learning, but I won't go do it. So really, I feel like that tower can be used as such a great way of understanding what's coming, but at the same time, what you just hit on with your fears of just even the interviews, man, that's some powerful shit, because it's like, at least you're willing to keep going through and to realize it didn't fall. It didn't break. Right? Like,
yeah, that's a big part. And again, that goes into the manifestation. You know, that's a big part of it, training your brain. But I guess to go back to what I was talking about, in order to prevent it, when you feel, because you almost always feel it, you know, and you can probably think back to maybe a friendship that you had with somebody or a relationship that you were in. And then, has this ever happened? You just wake up one day and the energy's different. It's like, what's going on with you? You're putting off a weird vibe. And then, you know, I mean, things happen. Sometimes people have bad days, but you know, when it just keeps building and building and getting worse and worse until you have a big blow up fight and an argument. Well, whenever you feel that weird energy, okay, well, what's the universe trying to tell me then? Is it time for me to back away from this person? Is it time for me, you know what I'm going to do? Like say, for example, it's, I don't know, say it's a family member, your cousin that you visit 2 or 3 times a week, and then all of a sudden the energy starts getting weird. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to stop texting you and see if I hear from you. So if I stop texting you and I back away from this and I don't hear from you, I guess that means the universe doesn't want you in my life. Or maybe it's a job, and then just everybody on the job is just acting funny. I feel this weird energy building up. Okay, well, maybe it's time to go look for a new job. I'm going to start filling out applications, because usually what you're feeling is the universe pushing you in a new direction.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I'm sure you could probably come up with an example in which there's an exception to that. But from what I can pull off my head right now, when I look back at every single tower moment I have ever been through, the universe was trying to tell me to go do something else, and I wouldn't do it.
It's true. I mean, it's interesting that the tower does have two people coming out. So it always has to deal also, I think, with a relational aspect to things very intensely. Because it is true. You can feel why am I feeling this? And it's a buildup. It could be just a week. It could be fucking years. That's what's, but the ones that are like the ones that it's like within a month to 2 months, you could feel that where it's like, God, something's off.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, that when the tower happens, it's the aftermath and seeing what it was about. Like, oh, that's what it was really about the whole time. That's what always fascinates me, is there's always something hidden.
Yeah.
There's always something hidden going on. Or to me, I feel like the tower could also be to save you if you're talking about in a relationship, right? It's like that person's already doing something that's making the connection feel off because they're not putting that same energy back in anymore, right? So that's already going to be a tower moment, because to me, it's like it's not connected anymore. If anything, there's not enough frequency and not enough energy to keep it together. So it's just it's like a popping of a fuse or something too.
Yeah. And then after the tower falls, one thing, especially if it's relationship related, like what you were talking about, there's something hidden in there. And then after the aftermath of it, when you find out what that hidden thing was, the ego goes through this thing where it is humiliated because it has to admit to itself, I was wrong. The ego doesn't like looking back. Because see, what we do, and I explain this to my clients all the time, we as humans paint a picture in our imagination of who we think someone is,
right,
and then we grow attached to that picture. And none of us like being handed evidence that shows that we painted the wrong picture. The ego hates that. So there's this part of it that humbles you after the relationship falls apart or whatever, and you find out they were lying to you the whole time, or they were cheating on you, or there was this thing that you were doing that bothered them that they didn't want to tell you to your face, or something like, or just whatever little stupid shit it is.
Right.
And then you go through that embarrassment, and then that kind of like hanging your head down, feeling stupid and feeling embarrassed. And at that point, this is where I think tower moments really turn into a good thing, because you're at a crossroads. So do I go ahead and admit to myself, all right, well, I was wrong. I was an idiot. And backtrack and ask yourself, well, why was I led to believe that lie? What can I do to fix this? Or are you just going to clutch on to anger and resentment and hold on to this negative energy and stay on that same frequency?
Right.
From that point moving forward after the tower,
Yeah, because I feel like at the same time, too, it's like, all right, there's the tower moment of the explosion, which you talked about and you hit on in a relationship, especially if it hits like a blow-up moment, right? Like that is totally when I feel like the stupidness comes out. I don't think anybody feels good after a blow-up moment in a friendship, a relationship, right? Like that's just not, I don't know anybody that's something you feel proud about in your life, or, and I think that what might be really weird is because the star comes after that's that reflection and that looking back and admitting and realigning into your true self. But it's really weird to me of like where some people gain that, they feel like there's power in tower moments and they just keep going down that path,
they
right?
go backwards to the devil.
Right. Backward.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where that hidden aspect is, because I feel like if we're going to think about prevention, the temperance comes before the devil. So it's like the natural way things flow. I always look at that card as divine natural flow, and how divine, the way she's pouring the water, it's like a divine frequency that's aligning. And you can choose that devil route. And I feel like it's that devil route that kind of comes in. To avoid it, you would have to avoid the devil to get to the tower. It's like, stay in the divine frequency and you don't have to go through that. But it's like once you take temperance and move it to the devil, it's like You're going to tower. It's like I don't know. What do you feel? Because I feel like that's what's really, there's an innocence to all relationships, friendships, even just like situations like you did with when you were doing your first part of the awakening experience. Like there's an innocence to it. And then there's this, I got to go into this thing because there's a fate energy about tower 2. Like it almost feels like it's all the dominoes. And you get to a place where it's like, I don't even know if I could shift this anymore. And I wonder if we can, though. Like, do you think that we can get to a moment where the tower is happening and not let it fall down?
Yeah, I think so. Like, and another example, my car. Like I've told the story for the people who don't know. Back February of last year, I finally got the chance to buy my dream car. 6th generation Camaro SS, 6.2 liter LT1 with a 6-speed manual. Oh my God, I fucking loved it. And then around October, it started having problems. Now, one of the first ways that I can tell the universe is telling me something is when it makes no sense. This car is 6 years old. It has 40,000 miles on it. And it's just problem after problem after problem after problem after problem. So guess what I did? I ignored it. I could hear the universe saying, it's time to let it go. No. Took it into the shop. Dude, the last 6 months I had it, it spent more time in the shop getting fixed than it did on the road for like 6 straight months. So finally, on the day that we moved, I had my daughter and my cat in the car. I'm doing 1,800 RPMs in 6th gear, just cruising. Clutch goes to the floor. The transmission went out. Me, my daughter, and my cat are stranded in the desert in the middle of nowhere with no cell service.
That's a month ago.
Yeah, that was just a month ago. And I was like, all right then, universe, dude, I hear you. Loud and clear. Okay. All right, fine, fuck it. That was something that I feel like that was close to a tower moment. It could have been so much worse. But what if, because it was all under warranty, right. I easily could have had it fixed and went and picked it up and paid a $100 deductible, get the transmission replaced. But what if I would have done that? What was coming next? What would the universe do next to say, dude, it's time to let that fucking thing go? It could have, see what I'm saying?
No, I see, because you don't even mention the fact that not only were you on the side of the road with your daughter and the cat and all the whole back full of all the water and all. I heard the story. Leah put it so well that then she's on the phone and there's no cell service where you're at. Yeah. And then the tow truck driver can't even find you. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a super tower frustrating moment. But I like how you put it to where it's like you at least accepted, I got to let it go. But that's what I'm trying to think is like, all right, it could have maybe, been a worse tower moment because when I had my dream car in 2019, which was the ZR1 Corvette, they hadn't had one since 2013, and it was 755 horsepower and they only had a couple. They didn't make a lot. And I was able to buy one brand new. And everybody remembers that car. And that car had problems right away.
Oh.
And I was exactly in the same place. You know what? They'll figure it out. Oh, yeah, it's just this. Nope, again. Every time that car is so heavy in the exhaust that, boom, it would just trigger O2 sensors to brand new. 2,000 miles. Right? 2,000 miles. But I'm not paying attention. And the night before the pandemic, I'm still not paying attention. Little things are happening. Once in a while, I would say, rear axle fucking problem. Well, the night before the pandemic, the rear axle light didn't come on. And I started drag racing it. And I ended up in a tree at 80 miles an hour and pretty much died. And I don't know how I got out of that after being unconscious and so forth and pulled out and the car was on fire. The only way I was able to let it go was breaking ribs. The only way I was able to let it go was that's when it's bad. Like the humbling too and the embarrassment. And also for the landlord here, right? Because it was on my street here at the studios.
Oh.
And they own this whole fucking street.
Oh.
So then I went into a tree and went in, you know what I mean? And then the gas and the fucking smoke went on to the other building.
Oh.
That's one of my neighbors that I don't know. So then my insurance has to then deal with my landlord. My landlord knows it's me that, oh, that's what you're doing. But because it was the night before that they did lockdowns and everybody went into lockdown mode and it kind of went, oh yeah, you know what I mean? But still, that's not a good excuse, right? Like
Right.
that, like, but that's where I wasn't paying attention, wasn't willing to let it go. And that's where I think maybe that tower has that ego element to it because of that crown at the top that's flying off. Where it's not a divine like ego of identifying things and being courageous to face things and listen to the universe, be humbled by the universe. If you think of, we're about to have a coronation of a new king next weekend, right? And they do this whole thing where it's like an anointment by God, right? It's almost like when you don't have your connection spiritually to your ego, bye-bye,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. But what was the original question? I kind of feel like I trailed off of that a little bit.
Oh, how to prevent a tower moment.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it sucks. What I should have done the second time the damn fuel pump went out was say, okay, time to trade it in. Leah was already telling me, let's get rid of it. No. So whenever you start seeing the signs or feeling the nudge or getting that sign that it's time to let go of whatever it is that you need to let go of, either let go of it or do what I like to refer to as knocking on doors. Okay, well, maybe it's time to go get a new job. Okay, well, let me start filling out applications then. Start taking action. You may not know what it is that you're supposed to do exactly, but it all comes down to people don't trust the universe. They don't trust themselves. That's going back to what I was talking about a minute ago, how most people would rather stay on the desert island because they know they're going to die than to swim out into the unknown. You got to step out into the unknown. You know, you have to make that decision. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust that I'm connected to something bigger than anything I could ever possibly imagine. And it has my back. If I step out into the unknown, it's got my back. But if I don't, if I stay stuck up in my ego trying to do it my way, then that's when shit's going to get fucked up and that's when I'm going to get the tower. But if I at least get on a path and say, okay, I have no clue where I'm going, but I'm trusting that the universe has my back. Eventually, a door's going to open and you're going to be able to pass through it with ease and that tower will be prevented. In almost 99% of instances, you know?
Right. I have a very interesting question for you. So what if somebody this is like, I get clients, right? And it's like, here's like a random example. Let's say somebody feels, especially because we're dealing in the spiritual field where everybody thinks twin flames or, right? Like, and they can get really colluded with the devilish thoughts of like, you know what? I'm married, but I feel like this is my twin flame and I'm going to cheat and I'm going to go be with that person and it's going to cause a tower moment, but you're walking into an even deeper tower moment, right? Right? And then, and the ego keeps going like that tower moment was their fault because this is my twin or this is where I'm supposed to go, right? Yeah. So that temperance, right? Where it's like, was this natural or not? No, it wasn't natural. Go into the devil. And then the devil loves to trick, right? Like, oh, you know what? No. You're right. They're wrong. Because I see this, I hate to say it, I see it in our community a lot. These really wild, fucking crazy situations that are fucking overwhelmingly crazy. And then they spiritual bypass and throw, no, the tower happened because of them. I didn't fly out. I flew to the right place. Now they're in this place where it's really dark. And then they're sitting there and not knowing. And then another tower moment comes. So I feel like the car situation and stuff, we all deal with these moments that can be preventable. But there's some people that get locked into a like permanent tower, it feels like, for them. And I'm wondering what you think is the best way to, I don't think at that point it's prevention, but some people are addicted to the tower. What do you say to people like that?
Well, this kind of ties into one of the subjects that we hit on in one of the other episodes where, like the example that you just used, I'm married, but I believe this person is my twin flame. Okay. So energetically speaking, nobody can make their way into your life unless the two of you match vibrationally somehow, whether it's a toxic match or whatever. Every person who's in your life is on the same frequency you're on. So if I'm in this relationship and I'm going to jump straight from this person to this person, I'm still staying on the same frequency. See, vibration is the primary law. Attraction and manifestation is the secondary law. So if I'm with this person and I jump straight from them to this person's on the same frequency as this person. The frequency is what manifests the vibration. So I'm not changing frequencies. I'm jumping from person to person to person to person to person, stuck in the same vibrational state. The vibrational state keeps manifesting the same outcome over and over and over. The best way, I always say, and people fucking hate this shit, but I don't care, take some fucking alone time. I had a lady attack me a few weeks ago for that. She came to me for a reading and she said, I've been unhappily married for like 30 years and I've lost myself. Is there new love coming in for me? I'm like, whoa, no. If you've lost yourself in this marriage, you think you're going to find yourself by getting into a new relationship? No. If you want to find yourself, go be alone.
Yeah.
But people are so afraid of being alone because they are so afraid of themselves. They don't want to face themselves. Your average person cannot sit in a room alone with no phone, no TV, and just their own thoughts for an hour.
Well, if you think of the devil card, it's a couple that are chained to the devil. Mm-hmm. Where I feel like if it's a true divine partnership, you don't feel like it's this, I have to have them, right? Or this weird kind of like attractive devil, because the devil deals with sex and attraction and all these really intense things, but it's a chain, right? Like the idea too of a twin flame is like, I am chained to that person, right? But there's this devil that's sitting there watching it like, haha, and really not making people feel happy, because then it becomes the pattern of like, maybe I hear this all the time. I was wrong about my twin. I don't know how many of you got that. Like, oh, I was wrong. That wasn't the real one. This one, though, is. Yes. This one, though, is. And it's like, okay, how many times do you keep chaining? Because as you say, if you can't find yourself, which the Temperance card she is by herself with the divine. Mm-hmm. She's totally happy with the nature and just finding who she is within the beautiful universe we live in. Mm-hmm. She's not looking to be chained. And that's usually when we find our divine partnerships anyway, it's the last thing that you think is gonna happen. Like, you know what I mean? You're not even thinking about the relationship.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly
right.
That's what it all comes down to. And for the people who have been following me for years have probably heard me go on this tangent 100 million times, but emotional codependency is the biggest issue that I see, especially in this line of work. And the solution is not a relationship. The solution to loneliness is not a relationship. The solution to loneliness is emotional independence. Emotional independence doesn't simply mean go be alone. It's a vibrational state. What it means is whether I'm alone or not, I'm fine. It's what we're looking for is a feeling. We're looking for the feeling of being fulfilled. The problem is we're expecting a relationship to create the feeling when that's not the way that it works. The people we attract into our life are reflections of our vibration. So if I'm on an empty, lonely, broken vibration, I'm going to attract a person whose vibration also resonates with emptiness and loneliness and brokenness. And then if we come together in a relationship, emptiness, loneliness, and brokenness will begin manifesting between the two of us. And this is the reason why when you take a look out there at the population, most relationships are failing because of this.
Right.
And unwiring that programming, because this has been programmed into our heads for so long that, you know how many people come to me, and I don't know if I mentioned this in another episode or not, but they'll say, when am I going to get my happy ending? And I'm like,
no, I know, because I would have made a funny joke about that.
Yeah, I'm like, ending? What makes you think you're going to get an ending? I'll tell you what, movies. We see this played out, and we've been seeing this played out for decades in the movies. You know, the empty, lonely, hopeless romantic finally falls into somebody's arms, and then they kiss, and then the credits roll, and it says happily ever after. So, but I can tell you what right now, I guarantee you that wasn't happily ever after. I guarantee you they were divorced in 5 years. because like that's painted this false image in our minds for decades that I'm not going to find happiness until somebody comes in my life and creates my happiness for me. And it doesn't. It doesn't. That creates toxicity. Now, in no way am I saying relationships are bad. What I'm saying is we need to get out of that vibration of need and desperation, because the scenario you just talked about, that's what that is. Need and desperation. I need somebody to love me in order to fill this void and create true love and happiness. It's like, no, a person loving you is not going to create that.
Right.
You loving yourself is what's going to attract it, you know?
I was going to say, it reminds me of Cinderella. She lives with her stepmom in her father's home who dies. And she allows her stepmom to turn her into a slave, right? To clean all the time and do everything while her stepsisters get to do whatever they want. And her only way out is through, and I see this in the spiritual community, they think some fucking fairy's gonna show up, right? And turn the pumpkin into a fucking chariot that's gonna take her to some ball, which, by the way, that prince had a line of the whole entire fucking country of every woman that was single,
Yeah.
right? And then he just so happens to see her, right? And whatever, he falls in love with her, and then she leaves a slipper, and then, oh, it's gotta be that slipper, and she doesn't even have the courage in herself to know how to fucking get down there. She allows herself to be locked in, and some magical mice have to come fucking break her out in order to come downstairs. And then it's happily ever after for her. She ends up with them, and that's it. But I'm like, what if that guy's just doing it reminds me of like Andrew Tate and how he is.
Yeah.
It's like, she married an Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
Right? And then Andrew Tate's just going off and fucking being like, hey, we need to get fucking 100 more girls in here today.
Yeah.
Like how, and then Cinderella gets in another situation where she's trapped. Oh, I'm married to him. I'm now the queen, but he's gonna go do fucking whatever he wants. Mm-hmm. He met a lot of girls in that line. That's what the movie doesn't show.
Yeah.
He got a lot of numbers, let's say, or shoes. Mm-hmm. Maybe he just feels like wanting to go find the slipper again. You know?
Guarantee it. And that right there, painting that picture in our minds and putting us in this mentality that if I'm not in a relationship, I'm going to be lonely and empty, and I won't be happy until a relationship creates my happiness. That's what creates the chain of tower moment after tower moment. It creates a circle, a dog chasing its tail type of energy, you know? And I argue that once that emotional codependency gets deep and strong enough, it turns into the devil card, because then it turns into addiction. I'm desperately dependent on a relationship to fill the void in my heart and distract me from my pain, just like an alcoholic is desperately dependent on that drink to mask his pain. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the exact same energy.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what's hard is if you can't find that within yourself, because people are even in here saying, right, like this whole bachelor bullshit, right? Like how they have a bachelor and have all these girls competing for the one guy, right? Mm-hmm. It's like and I think it's natural to go date, you know, in life instead of, there's some clients I have who, and it's in their astrology where they just like, they're even afraid to look at their options. Just the first person they hook up with, that's it.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like that's also kind of like a fear too of like being willing to find yourself too. It's like, oh, nope, I can't even make a decision for myself. I just found love and that's it. But I think it's that carrot that's the devil that's like, this relationship's going to save my life. It's going to help me because of money, or it's going to, and usually there's a weird situation. And that's where I feel like when you brought up earlier, you can feel the weird energy. Sometimes in friendships or whatever, where somebody is looking for an out through another person. Mm-hmm. Right? And so sometimes we can be on the other side of the tower card where it's like, fuck, I did everything. And you have to still learn to let it go. Like, you know what? That's their choice. They decided to go feel that they found their Cinderella or whatever and blow up fucking a thing. And you can't, the bitterness, I think, is what is part of the prevention of it being an extreme tower moment, even though it is. Like, it's about learning how to deal with, because man, bitterness can be fucking hard to deal with. And that can also fuck with our vibration of also us thinking that everybody that's going to come in is going to fuck it all up again. When some people choose some roads that are different. How do you think dealing with that bitterness of when it happens, if they have trouble letting go, how do you deal with it? Because I feel like there's still like a moment where you got to be bitter. You have to be aware of your emotional state and be like, you know what, I'm thinking bitter, but it's like replacing bitterness with the transformational process of like, all right, release, right?
Yeah, well, I usually, about 95% of the time, I advise energy transmutation, like we talked about that one day, where I take my bitterness and I figure out how to stuff it in the fuel tank. You know, whether you can use that to do anything. You can use that to go to the gym. You can use that to, like me, like I was telling you a couple of weeks ago, I used it because I wanted to become hyper successful so I could make all those women that rejected me feel stupid. And I realized once I got to where I wanted to be that they helped me, and that really helped me release it. So anytime in today's day and age, anytime I experience any kind, like for example, was this last year? Yeah, last year I had a very close friend, like the only friend that I had. We fell out, and we had been friends for a couple of years. We fell out, and yeah, I was mad at him. It pissed me off, and finally I just stepped back and I said, no, you know what? That soul contract served its purpose. I'm going to take everything that I learned by being connected with that person. I'm going to use it. And every time I use whatever I learned in that experience to make something awesome happen in my life, I'm going to look back on that experience and I'm going to express gratitude. Like the ultimate goal in energy transmutation is to be able to look back on whatever it was that happened and understand why it was meant to happen.
Right.
So what I tell my clients all the time is you're the only being in this entire universe who is capable of assigning a meaning to your life experiences. We're bitter because we don't understand why it happened. We're bitter because we wanted it to happen a certain way and it happened another way. That's basically what we're bitter about. So the goal is to be able to look back and say, I see why that happened that way. Now it makes sense. And there's so many different ways you can go about doing that. Once you really develop a trust-based relationship with the universe, you can just kind of step back and allow it to happen. But most people don't. So what I usually tell my clients is to figure out how to create a meaning to that experience.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I mean, it does, because there's got to be there's a meaning behind everything in life, right? But I feel like that's what's the hardest is, as you were talking about your friend, or we deal with people that it's almost like this is impossible. How could this happen? Whether it was the car thing you brought up, like there's that tower of the mind and the soul and the emotional aspect just blowing up. Like, what the fuck? But we have to remember that there is a meaning, because there is something, like if I look at astrology, like what happened in 2020 with Saturn and Pluto, it was like in Capricorn, it was like these structures, the way this world works is fucking gonna come down because it's not working. And if you can find that meaning, and I think that's what was hard, is some people were so attached. So it's attachment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I like to picture that future timeline that exists out there in the quantum field and hold on to the image and create the energy of already being there, looking back on what happened, expressing gratitude. And that's one of the biggest ways that I create meaning behind something that happened without even having a clue how I'm going to get there. I don't drive myself nuts sitting around trying to figure out how to make it happen. I'm not trying to fill in all the spaces and the details. I'll just say, okay, connect to the future version of me 5 years from now. Okay, so now I'm thinking back, and now I see why that was meant to happen, and I'll just create and hold on to that energy of feeling, because I'm connected to that version of me.
Right.
And it's basically like I hooked on to the future version of myself with a magic fishing pole, and I'm reeling myself towards, I don't know how it's going to happen, but one thing's going to lead to another, that's going to lead to another. And every single time, since I lived under a fucking bridge, I always end up finding myself eventually looking back saying, now I see why that was meant to happen.
Yeah.
It's a trust-based relationship with the universe, and that's a way, my favorite way to play with quantum physics and jump timelines.
Yeah, and that's an interesting part of the timeline part with the Tower card is that there is something about if we're jumping timelines, the other timeline, it was meant to be, but it also was meant to fall in order to get to the better timeline. I think of before, let's call it awakening, right? If I would have not awoke and I would have stayed on that timeline, the guy from high school, right? Like that guy, if I would have just like gone the path of the Matrix that everybody, the path that everybody goes down, because John Dee, a famous astrologer, he was the astrologer to Queen Elizabeth I in the 1650s and so forth, right? He literally wrote like, not about being like, you always hear like the tree of life, but he put the tree of the tree of rarity.
Of what?
Tree of rarity. To be unique, to be fully rare is what is to be spiritual, right? And it's like, I feel like you have to go through a Tower moment of the reality that is not rare, that is just the fucking typical shit, right? And that's a fucking humbling moment, your bridge moment, right? You look back and you can look at it now and be like, fucking thank God. Yeah. There's huge meaning to that Tower moment. And that's where the positive of the Tower moment comes in, right? It's like to break the timeline or this matrix per se, right? The matrix has to blow up in order for us to fucking get to the star. Like, and it was built, if you think of the matrix and it being a tower, it was built by the devil. That's what's hard is like people think, well, this place was built by God. It's like, where's the real timelines at? Where's the real fucking questions of, yeah, I believe this place was built by God, and then there was a devil that built some bullshit on top of it. Because the temperance comes before the devil, right? It's like, and that's natural. The devil, it doesn't look natural. It looks dark. If you brought up movies, the way that they sensationalize and put these characters now in the way that, I mean, I hate to say it, every fucking halftime Super Bowl fucking show now. I don't even watch that shit, but you know what I mean? I watch the clips afterward, and I see people fucking be like, did you see this shit now? And it's every year, it just gets crazier and crazier. It's got this fucking like demonic fucking look. And the way that even movies now, they've gotten rid of color and made it kind of like half color, half, they gradient it out. They make it like, they're losing the beauty. Like there's no beauty to it. It's also the moments in life where we feel like, this doesn't feel beautiful to me. And we're watching the signs that, yeah, this isn't a beautiful thing in my life. This path, right? Working at the fucking place. I'm fucking hating my life. I hate everything that's happening. Where the only beautiful thing I'm finding is a devil moment, an attachment, like, right? Like alcohol or fucking, some situation to where it's like just, and you think you're going to find a good lover when you're doing drugs, doing alcohol, and you meet a girl, and then that's going to come into your life, and you think that's going to be that's your frequency match of, it's just going to keep going down that fucking road until that comes to a fucking tower. So that matrix shit, really, if you think about it, it's like we all want the matrix to fall, but are people really ready for that moment? Because it's not an easy moment, but we fall into the star. I mean, it's like, it's not like when you see that Tower card, it's not like you're watching their brains explode on the fucking concrete. They're flying into another divine place that's out of that fucking craziness. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. To answer the question you just asked, no, I don't think most people would be ready. Like if it was to all crash today,
right?
I don't think most people would be. I don't think so because, and you hit on a real good point too when you said something to the effect of my only happiness is a devil moment. And that's the way it's been built and constructed for decades. Ever since the TV was invented, we have been chasing pleasure and expecting that to be our only happiness. So it's everywhere you turn, everywhere you look. Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure.
Right.
Alcohol, cigarettes, strippers, pornography, gambling, everywhere. Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. To where your average person has no clue what real happiness feels like. I didn't until I was in my 30s. And it's still, I won't lie to you, I still struggle with holding on to it to this day. But at least I know how to flip the switch. You know,
Right.
like that real happiness of I'm happy for no reason. I'm happy because I said so.
Yeah.
Not because I have money in the bank, not because I'm married to my life partner, not because I have my dream job, just for the hell of it. Take all
Right.
that away. Take it all away. I'll still be happy as hell. That, figuring out how to access that is what we have to get people to understand, that it's even possible. I don't think most people even know that's possible. We've been so programmed to chase pleasure that I don't think your average person even realizes that's possible.
I agree, because if you think of the tower, it's through an attachment. So if, you brought up great examples. You're happy just about your life. But even let's say it's your life partner, or if you have such an attachment that the happiness will, if something gets taken away, that you will be unhappy. Well, then it's a domino effect. The tower is not just one thing, it's everything in the tower coming down. And that's what I think is the hard part is, right? Like, if we lived in a world where, I don't know, if you're attached to the fucking way that you meet up with your friends to go eat fucking buffalo wings to watch football, and football goes down. And that's like the end of your existence because that's what your life is like. Everything else is going to start being like, to me, like a fucking, just like, I don't know why, I just imagine just like fucking just like TNT just everywhere, just like, okay, the next one, boom, boom, boom. And it just goes down your whole life to where the star card is really humbling. It's just you naked fucking on a lake again at night too. That's what's interesting. The temperance is in the day. That's right before the devil, then the tower, and then then you go to the star, which is at night, where you have to look up now and actually see. You're not like in the world. You're having to look up to a higher frequency. And I think that that's what it is tower moments are really about you're not aligned in your high frequency at all.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what's hard.
Yeah, it is hard.
But I think there's smaller ones, and then there's full life ones, and then there's this collective one. And I think that's where we're at, is like, we can master this energy in the little moments that are important, but then the major life moments. But I think where you and I are wanting to do is get all of that. But this last one is really big, right? It's like the world itself, which is so funny because the world card is the last card. There's other cards before the star and all that, but it's like interesting that you build up in the major arcana from the Fool, and you go to this High Priestess and the Magician, of course, and all these like these self-identifying figures. But that's what's really interesting is that there's two people coming out of the tower, right? Like there's how you align also in your frequencies, which in many ways, I'm sure if you were to take the Lover's card, which is in the garden, which reminds me of the Nine of Pentacles, like how you're by yourself and you know your value and things are attracted to you. The bird's attracted to you, right? It's like two people just run into each other in the garden, like, oh, you're self-sufficient in yourself. But, you know, that's where somebody had wrote a comment to us, like, what do you do in this world where everybody's saying, go find 40 acres, go find your life partner and go build your life in some other place. And the way that the money works and all this shit, people are getting lost into this, like, how do I escape the matrix by creating my own new matrix? But it's still connected to attachments of like, not only what to have, but also the attachment of the fear that's created. If you're attaching to create something based off an attachment to a fear, it's not going to go that good.
Well, to answer that question, what do you do? This is what I would do. As a matter of fact, this is what I did do, because I went through a lot of that fear and a lot of those questions over the past 3 years myself. Step back and say, okay, universe, I'm trusting that I'm here right now because this is where you want me. If you want me to go somewhere else, you'll open the door and you'll point me to it. Or maybe if you're worried, should I go try to find 40 acres? Here's what I always tell, because I get should I questions from my clients all the time.
Right.
Should I go look for a job or whatever? And I say, if you really want to know whether or not you should, try it. I promise you, if the universe does not want you to, it won't happen. So if you think, well, fuck, let me go try to find 40 acres. Try it. Try it. I went through something similar like back in 2020, right after we moved into Vegas. my wife and I were debating back and forth as to whether or not we should buy a house, and went back and forth. Should we rent, buy, rent, buy? Finally, I said, well, let's ask the universe. I'm going to try it. So I went and sat down with a mortgage company. They said, nope, sorry, Mr. Lopp, we can't approve you. Can't approve me? If I wanted to, I could pay this house off in a couple of years, you know?
Right.
They said, no, you need some tax, something with your taxes or some shit like that. I don't even remember, but I was like, okay. The universe said no. About 6 months later, I was like, okay, I got my tax information they said they needed. Let me try it again. So I went back and sat down with another mortgage company. Nope, sorry, Mr. Lopp, we can't approve you. And I'm like, well, the last people I talked to said that I needed this, and I've got this. And they rattled off some weird, crazy, I don't even remember what the hell they said. But anyway, the universe said no again. So, okay, obviously, the universe doesn't want me to buy a house. The universe wants me here in Vegas. Okay. So what do you do when people are saying, go find 40 acres, go do this, go do that? Well, if you want, fucking try it and see if the universe will let it happen.
Right.
Or if you don't want to go through all that bullshit, just trust that there's not a grain of fucking sand out of place in this universe, and you're right where you're supposed to be because that's where you're supposed to be. And when it's time to move, when it's time for you to bust some kind of move, the universe is going to let you know.
Yeah, it's gonna just. I've done. That's actually subconsciously how I've just done things. Is I've been like, well, let's see if it's gonna happen, and I'll apply or whatever, and then it happens, and then I'm like, okay, it's meant to happen. Mm-hmm. Or it's been the weirdest situations. I'm not bullshitting. I've been able to get fucking business loans that would make people fucking be like, you were able to get that much money. I've been able to do all these, but then like the simplest thing that somebody would be able to get, it'll be like, no. And it'll be like, why not? Oh, well, you have 2 S corps and all that, but you personally, because, you know, in taxes, you write off certain things and so forth. So like, you go to like places with really high end money and all that, they understand all that shit. But then the littlest thing, and I'm like, what's not meant to be that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's what's so interesting to me is like, sometimes for me, it could be inverse, right? It's like, I could fucking get whatever I want pretty much. And then it'll be some little thing. It's like, I'm not supposed to get that thing. It might be over some stupid thing. And the worst thing is the judgment that you can't allow into yourself from others. Mm-hmm. Like on this show, especially already, there's some crazy woman out there who's like, all these spiritual people, they need to live their life to where they buy a house. They're not rich because they make payments. They're not, right? Like, it's like their own version of it, right? It's like, and like, they even try to tell, oh, well, there is no such thing as a fucking bachelor's degree or even a degree in astrology. And I fucking hit that person up with, Oxford University, which is one of the best, the oldest and the best in the world, has a master's in fucking astrology. And they deleted comments on their channel. And it's like, I don't let it get to me. I'm like, well, that's pretty sad that they can't even have a debate. But I'm not going to let the judgment, because this person sitting there walking in their fucking shoes on a fucking beach won't even show their face, right? Like if you allow people who judge you to get you in any way, you've already failed. You're now accepting that. You can't. That's not something to accept, right? So that's weird. We accept things that don't work out, but we don't have to accept things that are judging us into this box of an idea or a belief system of like how it's always been. Like you should have a 401k and
I would feel very safe guaranteeing that whoever this is you're talking about is saying that because she sees spiritual people on the internet doing better than she is in life. I would almost be, I could be wrong, but the thing about it is it does not matter what you do.
Right.
It does not matter. It doesn't matter what you do. You're going to have some idiot out there who's not even close to having their shit together judging you. Because who sits around and critiques other people's lives? Picture that. Let me put it to you like this. Paint a picture in your mind of a happy, successful person that has their life together. Paint that picture in your mind. Now paint the picture in your mind of what they spend their time doing. Do you think sitting around and talking shit and critiquing people is one of those things. No, it's not.
No.
Happy, successful people who have their life together and they got a good life aren't wasting their energy doing that shit. You know who does that? Losers. Losers do that. Miserable fucking losers who are not where they want to be in life spend their time casting that negative, shitty energy. And the only way it can even touch you is if you agree to have an energy exchange with them. If you start trying to fight with them and argue with them and this and that, then eventually at some point, yeah, that'll grab you and pull you down. But that's another thing. I'm glad that you touched on that because so many clients come to me horrified of failure. And it's like, it's not failure that you're worried about. You're worried about embarrassment. You're worried about what other people are going to say because you know that whether you make it or not, you're going to have somebody talking shit.
Right.
And people are so scared of other people's opinions of them that they stay locked in one place. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. I mean, that goes, especially being an astrologer or a tarot reader, right? You put out a prediction. And you have to get to a place to where you're not worried about if the prediction becomes wrong because you have to trust that it's right in a way. And I feel like that's where it gets really hard, I think, for people in this field of like, you're going to have to throw out with what there's no thought, right? It's not like a thought thing. It's an instant. You've said it to me before. There's just something when you get into a reading, and especially if you're doing it on YouTube or you're doing it, once the camera turns on and everything, just something just comes in and bang, right? And you have to, and I feel like that's the most perfect place of knowing how to navigate the universe, like is in that zone. And I think bringing that to everyday life is where the challenge becomes for people.
Yeah.
Right? Like sometimes, I'm the first one to admit, fucking when I don't have a channel built off criticizing people, right? But I'll let sometimes some things get in and people will be like, why aren't you just talking about the people that love you? And I'll be like, well, they're coming at a fucking thing, right? I can find some excuse, but that's also pulling me out of the channeling. And that's where they're helping me out is really, that's pulling you out of the channeling. Or sometimes I might use it as a example. But it's not, I think you say it best. If your whole life is that's all you're doing is criticizing people, which it kind of sucks because in our field, if you make one criticism, then people think that's all you're doing is criticizing people. It's like, no, shut up. Look at every fucking thing that's happening and what's actually going on and the layer of work that's happening. But I feel like when it comes to doing predictions, I as an astrologer, especially when you're doing prophetic astrology, right? Like calling out what's going to happen 10 years from now, 5 years from now, what's going to happen, right? I can't worry about people's judgments at all. Like I have to deal with the backlash for years until it finally happens. And that's the only way that you're able to do it is you're going to be attacked with every fucking arrow because you're going against the attachment people have to reality. Or even I'm sure for you, when you do a relationship reading, you're like, no, I don't see it. And that could even be for your weeklies where I'm sure, somebody's too overhyped on this is going too good. This person's just a piece of shit. Fucking, it's going so good. It's going so good. It's going, but you've already called them out on this. Oh, yeah. I think as readers, that's where we're, even in our own lives, we're willing to be like, all right, I'll look at that for sure. But I think if you're not willing to look at it and always block it out, whatever's happening, that's just like the same thing. It ain't gonna fucking rain. The clouds are all the way over there.
Yeah.
As you're sitting in your tower. But, in tarot or astrology readings, right? It's like, I always think it's funny because I've done weeklies for so long, you have too. Some people, they'll watch it on that Monday. And because it's not on that Monday happening at this moment, they already have written it off. When you're reading for the whole week.
Yeah.
Right? What do you say to, I don't even know if it's what you say to people, but I think that's an important thing for people to remember is some people get lost in the attachment because they hear it on a Monday when you're reading till Sunday, right? You're reading for the whole week. There's a lot of things that are going to happen. Same thing in astrology.
Well, I'll try to make it a very important point that when I read, what I'm reading is the energy in this moment.
Yeah.
The energy is what manifests the outcome. And I think what a lot of people don't really understand is that on an individual level, the universe doesn't really use time frames. Not really. Maybe a little bit, a loose time frame.
Right.
But when at least me, when I'm reading for the masses, I'm picking a block of time and I'm reading the energy in that block of time. The universe is not looking at me individually saying, okay, Rich, on April 28th at 9 a.m., this is what's going to happen. It doesn't work that way. On an individual level, the universe uses like a checklist. Okay, Rich, right now you're at this level, and you're going to stay there until you complete it. And then once you complete that, you're going to move on to this level. So what I read is I'm reading the energy in that moment. So here's the vibration in this moment on Monday. Now, how long is it going to take for it to manifest into this outcome? Who knows?
Right.
It could be Monday, could be Sunday, could be next week, could be next month. Or sometimes I'll even make it very clear that I don't see this happening within the time block that I'm reading for. But eventually, if the energy stays the way it is right now, this is what it's heading into. And I like to try to give advice. What I like to do is I like to read where the energy is heading right now and then tell you how to change it if you want to. You see what I'm saying?
That's what I'm glad that you gave all that answer, because I'm like, that's what I feel like as readers we do are preventing tower moments.
Yeah.
You're right about the time period, right? I mean, as an astrologer, it's like, and I'm sure people that know that watch my Deep Astrology Weekly, it's like I do it I pick it on purpose. I purposely do my weekly for the whole collective. On Wednesday, it comes out. Tuesday night, I film it live. So it gets them off that time system. It's like, wait, what? Like you're doing it on the beginning, the middle of Wednesday is when you're starting to Tuesday night, and then you do it again? I started that in like 2014 because I was like, if I keep doing this Monday thing, everybody's attached to the calendar system. Everybody's attached to, people don't even realize the biggest attachment in this world is a fucking calendar system. Mm-hmm. It's a fucking calendar. Like what makes today different than tomorrow as far as a day? Like people actually feel, well, it's Sunday. I feel different. They've programmed themselves to feel different.
And it makes you age too.
It does make you age. Where it's like, I don't even know what day is it? Like as far as that goes, I know that this is the moment in my life I'm doing this show with Rich. There's an energy, there's a feeling that you can feel it coming in, that you draw up yourself, that you come up. But that's what's so crazy is the attachment. And I feel as readers, it's about giving people, here's the little things. Yeah, the storm's coming in here. It doesn't have to go this way, because if the outcome is this is where you're helping people tune into the frequency and adjust and to tweak their lives or pay attention too. Because I think the number one thing besides just that is just, hey, pay attention. Because a lot of people are just wanting the outcome that they want, right, in life. And that's good to be. But at the same time, it's like it never in life goes exactly the way that we exactly visualize to see it. You might put up a vision board, which I did. And I've said this before. I put up Gabrielle Bernstein as like the kind of woman I would want back in like 2012. Obviously, I'm super happy that didn't happen. But it was the idea and the visualization of the kind of girl that I wanted in my life that I have now. Mm-hmm. And thank God it wasn't her. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it doesn't go exact, and that's what happens with visualization, right? Yeah. Which I think the Tower card is a good visualization of understanding where things can go, but also to not attach to that visualization if you're basing your whole life off, the fear of that happening. Mm-hmm. But that's the other thing, is that visual that can happen to ourselves by the signs and so forth. The worst is when you try and say, no, those clouds are not turning into rain or thunderstorms, and you're turning them into fluffy rainbow clouds. The rainbow comes after the storm. It doesn't come before. That's the other thing in Christianity and so forth. People have been talking so much about after the flood with Noah and how God gave a rainbow afterwards. And there's a lot of talk about like that's when the earth went through a major change as far as like, they call it like a vapor fucking, earth, or even if you look at the firmament, stuff like that, right? And I always go, you know what? It's like a storm comes and then the rainbows happen. Like that's the whole part of it, right? It's like, and storms don't have to be so bad. I think that people like freak out about shit that comes around to change things. Like if there wasn't storms, California would be in a drought right now. Now we're not. Mm-hmm. So there's positives, but I feel like people right now we're trying to help people to make the adjustments. And I know there's a lot of people, because I read a lot of comments, a lot of people are like, that one comment that you put was so perfect is like, there's a lot of broken people in the audience. But it's like, it doesn't mean that if you are triggered by that you are. You have to remember that including me or Rich, when we showed up into this work, we were broken people.
Yes, that's the point. That's the point. That's the whole thing. I mean, you have to know. And I see so many people who want to step into this line of work. And then I've seen several people get overwhelmed by having to deal with the broken people, to put it lightly. And it's like, dude, what exactly are you expecting? Who do you think, who is it that turns to us? Who is it?
Right.
It's not people that have it going on in their life. It's the people who are at the end of their rope. They're at rock fucking bottom. They've tried everything. They've asked everybody for advice, and they're just at a loss. So the only thing that they can think to reach for are these people who claim to be able to tap in to, spirit or some sort of higher energy for answers. And that's who we're reaching. That's who we're reaching. So obviously, yes, our audience is very broken. That does not mean that you're bad people. I was still broken. I'm still broken. I'm still working on myself every single day. That's the whole point. And that's one of the things that I make it a real strong point to do, is to let everybody know I'm a regular human too. Yes. I'm working on myself too. Here's how you do it. Here's what I learned. Let me pass it on to you,
Yeah, because it's not like you're David Koresh fucking at Waco, Texas. I just watched that documentary. And I always knew about Waco, and I understood the parameters around that cult. But when they got deep into it, I mean, he was telling people that he was the Messiah. He was the second coming.
Yeah.
He even negotiated with the FBI and said, hold on, I have to write my new theory on Revelation, and then I'll let everybody out. Right? Like it got to, and there's some really, I don't want to get into that craziness about that whole thing, but it's like, that's the one thing, right? It's like, it's not like we're coming here and saying, through me and only me.
Yeah.
Right? That I am the only way to get through this shit. It's the opposite, right? Like he was in such a place to where he's the only one who knows, and he didn't share any common understanding of the reality of life and getting through shit with others. Right? It's like, that's the worst part, right? Is when in this community, right? Like people, we all come to this broken, all of us have shit we're just looking to get through in life. And it comes to even us readers. There's times where it's like, fuck, there's a situation in my life going on right now. Fuck, am I going to be all right? We all are broken. That's the whole intention. It's not that you're a broken fucking piece of shit. You know what I mean? I think people take words and take it to the wrong way. But it's not like a David Koresh cult situation where it's like, only through this and everybody has to get, and that's what I'm worried about in the spiritual community is the cult.
Yeah.
Because it's becoming that way with, well, you didn't fucking have, your yoga this morning and you didn't drink a green juice. So.
I see it all the time, dude. All the fucking time. And they're making it all about that. And
which is going to be a tower.
Yeah. And it almost kind of seems too like it was done on purpose a little bit.
Yes.
I'm kind of, if you look back, like I stepped into the spiritual scene when the veganism thing was the big thing, and you see there's these little trends that get built. You have to, this is the answer. This is the only answer. And then people form these little cults. And, you have to do it this way. And you have to make sure that you wear your crystals on this arm. And you have to make sure that you drink your green juice, like you said. And I've seen so many people fall straight the fuck off. Like, it is even worse than spinning in circles. I've seen people straight up fall off and fall back into like addiction and alcoholism and even OD and die,
Well, even in that cult, he made every member who was married divorce their wife, and he was now the one that had all their wives.
Oh, wow.
Right? And even there was a documentary done in 92, the year before the Waco incident happened, where some of the members are literally like, yeah, I mean, if I have to figure out how to humble myself to God, and David's the one who's telling me to do this shit, then I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. Right? And then he was doing it with all the kids. He's in full relationship with the kids. And then they were trying to say, well, in our religion, once a woman's 12 years old, then she's an adult. She can carry a baby. So that's where it is. And I'm like, that's fucking twisted shit. Like, right? Like, that's like, and everybody's giving it to that one person. And then he even had so much power that he had the FBI basically in full entrapment to where they had to do everything that he wanted. He's like, you got to put my messages out on the radio, and then I'll let a couple kids out at a time. 51 days.
Wow.
Right? But it's like in the spiritual community where I look at the Hierophant card and I think there's two people. Tower also represents that to me, right? The devil has the two people that are chained, but then it has the subservient two people kneeling to the Hierophant. Not to the divine God, but to a person. And I feel like when we hear about it in Christianity, right, like people, especially in Catholic faiths or certain different Anglican faiths and so forth, they drink the blood of Christ, which is wine, and they'll eat the bread of something, which is the body of Christ. The green juice now is the blood.
Yeah.
The physical is, if it's eating a fucking vegan cracker, I don't know, right? But it's all to some sort of Pope green juice, like yogi master. And people don't realize, look at the fucking Dalai Lama and that fucking kid that he, right?
Yeah.
And now people are trying to give excuses as to why that's part of the tradition. It's the same thing that David Koresh just did with, in our tradition, it's okay for me to tell all the men, break up with your wives, they're my wives now, and your children are my next lovers to bring in the seed of the Messiah.
Yeah, I think another thing too, to hit on the topic of the green juice and the veganism, there's this idea that there's this one way that we are designed to function and operate. And I don't think people understand that there's nothing natural about us. We are modified beings.
100%.
Other races came to this planet and fucked with our DNA. Like, we did not evolve. It would take millions and millions of years for us to have evolved into what we are when Homo sapiens sapiens only 200,000 years old.
Right.
We were genetically modified and created by other beings from other places. So it's not like, you know, like take any other animal and they instinctively know, like the squirrel instinctively knows to go eat the nuts, and that's what it needs is the nuts, because, you know, and all these other animals that already, you know, and we're not like that. It's not like, oh, that's a human being, they should only be eating grass. They should only, you know what I'm saying? And we get so wrapped up in the way it's supposed to be when I don't fucking think there is one way that it's supposed to be. We're an experiment, basically. We were a trial and error experiment until they finally came up with us, the perfect slaves that they had to make sure they kept us stupid because we're actually capable of rising up to higher levels than they are. And that's why they've been keeping us so stupid for so long, because we're actually capable of more than they are. But
yes. There was just one of the oldest men in America. He's 109. He's not in a wheelchair. He still drives. He still does everything. And they asked, how did you do it? Because everybody in his life that he's known, right, from a child to 60, his wife died 30 years ago. Right? Like, so imagine being 109 and like, how'd you do it? And he's like, one, I'm around people. I have good friendships. I eat what makes me feel good. Whatever he likes, a hamburger, he goes once in a while. He fucking eats the shit that you wouldn't be thinking about. He likes to drink a fucking Dr. Pepper. He just is living in his happiest state all the time. Mm-hmm. He likes helping other people by going and volunteering still at the fire department, even though he retired when he was 70. So he's been retired, but he never stopped. Mm-hmm. And he likes to go on a walk, and he likes to sit and watch things that make him feel entertained, that are fun on TV, just like old movies and stuff. But he's just living in his full happiness. And I think what's happening in the spiritual community is, oh my God, you're drinking, like for me, you drink that genetically modified Sprite. I'm like, do you really think that I've allowed my frequency to keep taking on a tower moment frequency because I would be feeling that dark cloud come? When I feel a dark cloud come on something in my life, I don't do it. I will pull all myself off of it because I'm like, oh, you know, shit. So people question things like, you know, like what and you know what was even crazier is the guy smoked for 40 years because at the fire department when he was young, they said, hey, and he started when he was like 50. He started at 50 years old smoking cigarettes. And then, no, sorry, he's 20 years. And then at 70, he just went, I'm just over it. And I just like read this whole story and I went, this is exactly what I'm trying to fucking tell people.
Yeah, it's your frequency.
Exactly. And also you would be, if we're using a tower moment a thing, the worst is that how many people, and I'm not saying that veganism is wrong or any of that shit, right? Because if it's your frequency, it's your frequency.
Right.
That's the whole point. But I get so many people who live by this code of this perspective of like, God, I can't eat sugar, I can't do this, and the stress and then their own body is just revolting against it, right? Like they're constantly having horrible stomach issues. Now they're this, now they're that, and they're like, but I'm trying to combat it with doing this holistic thing and that holistic thing and that. But that's what makes it weird is the inverse of this reality. And now you got things like fucking COVID shots and all that bullshit and experimental shit where if we choose not to do it and other people do, and some people are fine, some people are definitely not fine, and then some people who didn't do anything, it's like whatever your frequency is. So I try not to judge at all because I'm like, if it works for your frequency and that felt frequency, of course, that's why some people are like, well, why do some people who take that thing, they're okay? Well, maybe that's what matched their frequency. I have no idea. We're all fucking unique and weird.
Well, it depends on what our frequency is ourselves. Like, that's the reason why you see this person smoked for 20 years and nothing happened. This person smoked for 5 years and they got lung cancer. And you wonder, well, why is that? Because that person was probably at a very low frequency state for much longer.
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a damn if you go eat the most organic, healthy, grass-fed beef and organic spinach and shit like that. If you're doing it because you're scared to death that something bad's going to happen to you and you're in a vibration of fear, there's no fucking diet that's going to ward off those fear frequencies and chemicals that they can measure where you're sending the energy to what parts of your body. They actually have the technology to do that.
Yeah.
They can actually scan your brain and see when you're feeling a negative emotion where you're sending that. It's very hidden and suppressed. They don't talk a lot about it, but they have that technology. Like, we have been so programmed to be in a constant state of fight or flight. Constant. Like Dr. Joe Dispenza, he said this, it was fucking awesome, that if you take an antelope, it's grazing and whatnot, and then all of a sudden from the bushes, out comes a lion chasing it. Its stress response kicks in. It goes into fight or flight, floods its body with stress hormones. It takes off running, and then it outruns the lion, and then it goes right back to grazing like nothing ever happened. And that we humans are the only beings on this planet that can trigger that exact same stress response with thought alone. We can think about something and trigger that exact same response. And what most people are out here doing is they're living their whole life in that same stress response as that fucking antelope running from a lion. And those chemicals constantly flowing through our body are toxic as fuck. And there's no diet that's going to ward that off.
Yeah, the most toxic thing in the world is our own frequency that we're choosing or the frequencies that we are creating and then trying to do, like, again, you can't base anything off fear and think you're going to manifest and create anything that's going to be positive. And even if you think it's positive to get you out of the fear, it's not going to grow. It's not going to take you on your path. It's just a temporary solution, probably, because then there's another fear on top of that next, right? So yeah, it's that stress response, but it's that fear that the lion's there when it's not. It's not there. And that's what I had to learn through my panic disorder, which was fucking the most humbling experience. And everybody tried to tell me, do my irology. So I did that. And then I was kind of tripped out because an irologist was able to, in 2012, they took a picture of my eye and they had a fucking laptop. And this is 11 years ago. And the guy looked at me and he went, you used to do meth. I'm like, how do you know that? He's like, yeah, in 2006 and 2007 was really intense. I'm like, how do you know? It's all written in our eyes.
What the fuck?
Right?
Are you serious?
Yeah. And I was like, fuck, that's fucking some good shit.
Oh my God.
But anyway, he was like, I think you need to do a little detox or whatever. And so I did a detox and I didn't feel good. And then I started having my panic, so I started cutting out everything. I cut out nicotine, I cut out caffeine. And I went through my own personal experience in my life where I was in such fear of the anxiety that I cut everything and was only eating like lettuce, like a little bit of meat would be like a turkey sandwich and bread and fucking water. And I felt the worst I'd ever felt my whole entire life.
Oh, shit.
And I went for that for 3 years. I lost so much weight and I was doing this work and I was stressed because I couldn't, all I wanted in my life was the feeling just to be able to just do my job without feeling anxiety. And it wasn't the work that it was me tripping myself out all the time about what, because in the spiritual community, people were trying to tell me, why are you doing this? You're not spiritual if you do that. You're not spiritual if you do this. And I bought it. And I fucking went through 3 years of hell till I had to humbly go to an outpatient facility, which is like the most, don't do that. You can't trust Western medicine or psychologists or any of that shit. They're the people who fucking, in one day, group therapy too. Outpatient group therapy, being able to hear other people's stories and to relate with them and be like, oh, I'm not that bad at all. All right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh shit. But at the same time, like the tools that they gave me of being able to understand when the thought, because in panic disorder, it's really bad. You get to that place to where it's anxiety, then you have a panic attack. Then you're just in fear of having a panic attack. So now you're not even in anxiety anymore. You're just in a fucking, I'm gonna have a panic attack. And then it just comes and it just becomes a cycle. And you actually get so deep that you can't pull yourself out with intervention. You actually can get to that place with your mind. And that's, going through that was like the most humbling and horrifying experience where I went for a year where I'm like, I will not go to the doctor. Fuck them. To where I just basically lived, I got agoraphobic for 6 months. I didn't leave my house for 6 months. I just did videos, didn't leave. I couldn't even walk outside. And thank God that was 2015 when the beginning of ordering, but that was like the beginning of like a grocery store shopper for you. And I would pay that extra money to get the groceries. That's not a fun place to live. And in this community right now, oh my God. From everything from the twin flame shit to, you just go down the list, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that some of that might not be, real either. But I think that people are grabbing onto things as if it's, without doing their own research or without, like you said, experiment on if the 40 acres is supposed to be for you, experiment on it. But also, if let's say you're in a divine partnership and your partner doesn't want that, then you got to deal with that first. You can't just start going and doing shit. So it's not about, let me go experiment with everything and fuck everybody over. That's already going to create the worst tower moment of your life.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're in a partnership, the most important thing is that you and your partner have to grow and evolve together. The two of you have to evolve together. And that's so hard for two people to do because the only person that you can evolve is you. The only person they can evolve is them. So evolution, willingly evolve is not fun. You're putting yourself through very uncomfortable situations. You're shedding lots of old belief systems and doing all this inner work that's not fun. No. So to get two people to look at this process and buy into it and say, oh, okay, I'm going to create that life and I'm going to do this work to get it and get two people to do that together. Incredibly fucking hard to get two people to do. Very hard. Until two people who are a match come together. So if it's time for you to go out and get the 40 acres and your person doesn't want that, what if that door opens and you can get the 40 acres and they don't want it? Then what do you do? Because now you're experiencing what I did a video on this on my channel where I say why you lose people on the manifestation journey. Because as you're moving up, see, you're down here on this frequency and everybody that you have access to in your life is on that frequency too. And as you start to move up, people are going to fall out of your life.
Right.
And you have a choice to make. Am I going to continue onto this journey up the mountain and let go of you? Or am I going to stay here with you? Because if I stay here with you, I'm never going to get to the top of the mountain because I'm staying in the same frequency. So that's
because you don't want to slide down the mountain. You want to continue the climb And it's like, I look at the whole life as the whole climb. I don't think it's like sometimes in life we have to take a step back, but I don't think it's a slide down the mountain. I think it's a step back of an observational view. Like, how am I going to get to this place now more up? It's always about taking a step back to keep looking up. There's never the turn around and go down to the bottom of the mountain again. That's when you know you're not on the path. Yeah. That means it's not the path for you at all, that it was never a path, right? So I think that that's the fear that keeps happening, because when you bring up like a match with two people, it's like, you just did it. You just moved with you and Leah and family just moved here, and you both were in alignment, and you have to decide on a place together. You have to decide on if the location of a new state, city, all these different things, that's a match. It's working out. It's like, or like, for me, and I'm going through, we're going to have a child together. We made the decision. Our baby girl wasn't an accident. We were both on that frequency. We're both on the same frequency of the place we want. We're both on the frequency of the spirituality we want to do. Now, of course, what to eat sometimes we might not be, but that's different, right? That's where we honor each other. I'm like, why don't you just order from there and all over here? Perfect. That's not all the time, but that's sometimes, it's like there's no resistance. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's a way to find the flow because we're in a common frequency, like you say, and we're both wanting to go up at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right. That's very hard to find. Mm-hmm. And you got to treat it that way, though. The same way that the uniqueness of the most beautiful things in this world are the hardest things to find, but they're worth the effort for yourself to put into yourself. They're worth the effort. It's not pain. It's not, right? It's like working out. I'm sorry, but you're not going to gain a fucking bunch of muscle mass and fucking look ripped in one day at the gym. It's just not going to happen. Your muscle memory might come back if you've been doing that for a while, in that one day, but it goes away. I do a race, I look like I'm fucking ripped again. And then 3 days after the race, it's like, cool. And then boom, I don't go back. Here I am. Gumby. But I go back in there. But if I were to do that every day, oh shit. But that's also my life choice, that I'm not in the frequency of wanting to go race every day and fucking work out to be the best racer in the whole fucking universe. That's not where I'm at. It's a hobby, and I like to win, and I like to have fun, but I'm not at that place where I'm like trying to be the best racer in the world, because I'm putting more energy in other places. So that's another thing, is choosing. God, you can have it all technically, but where do you really want to have it that's the best parts of you that really keep growing? Because that's one thing about having it all. There's another about continuing up the journey.
Yeah. You know? That's one of the scariest parts of the whole path. I think, well, I started to touch on that, I think, on the first show that we did, that if you go from rock bottom to the top of your first mountain, because climbing mountains never stops, then maintaining it and continuing to climb. That's the hard part. That's where I found myself. Like I bought in to the idea that I was going to cross through a finish line and kick my feet back and be happily ever after. I bought into that. That lasted not even a year before I started going crazy. Like, what next? What do I do now? I went crazy. I went nuts there for a little bit. When I very first got my first taste of success, and I thought, yes, I can get to kick back now and life's easy breezy. I got all fucking fat and got bored sitting around the house all the time. It's like, this is not. This illusion of the dream of the person sitting on the beach, the people they paint out.
Oh, no.
This is what success is, sitting on a beach.
With a laptop. I'm running my whole life off a laptop on the beach.
It's like, well, yeah, that's fine. You can do that for maybe an hour, but that would get fucking boring doing that all day, every day. But people, they paint this picture in their mind of where they think they're going to go. But I tell people all the time, when you get there, then what? Life goes on. Life goes on, and you got to maintain it. It's easy to fall off.
You know what they don't show? They always show, like, I remember, and that was like a couple years ago. It was so popping, right? It was like everybody was like, I can show you the way to live on the beach and just run your whole business off a laptop and live your dream. They don't show them when the fucking storm's on the beach. They don't show when the fucking wind has come up so bad and the fucking sand's flying in your face and it's in your laptop now and you close your laptop and it's crunching, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not like they've got everybody so into this, like, you are going, that it's permanent.
Yeah.
That it's permanent, right? They like a permanent vision that never changes. It's like, because I love the beach. I live out on the beach my whole life and I fucking go to the beach all the time. And it's like, people realize I don't like to eat fucking my sandwich on the beach.
Yeah.
I don't like those crunches in my teeth of like, how did sand get in here? And I didn't drop it.
Yeah.
There's sand that flies in the wind and gets in your mouth. Like people don't like, you know, like to me, sitting at a hotel in Hawaii on the beach for a week and just doing that would be hell.
Yeah, that'd be boring as fuck.
I would literally already probably be building relationships with the people at the hotel and trying to find something. I'd probably be in the back storage area of the hotel, listening to some guy show me some crazy story about what happened in it, because I'd be that like, I just like, there's more to this life to be doing. Of course, I like my moments to rest and to chill and to enjoy things, but for a week of just that, I would lose it.
They paint the picture that that's what it's all supposed to be about, which again goes back to your frequency, because what's happening, to try to summarize it from a psychological perspective, is what's happening is people see that image and they paint this picture in their mind and they think, oh, what that would feel like, because I've never experienced anything like that. All I've ever experienced is wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go force myself to do some shit that I fucking hate all week long just to barely be able to afford to pay my bills. And that's all I know. So I see that picture and oh my God, that must feel amazing. And it's like they don't understand that you have to change your frequency to be able to get to a place where you can do that from time to time. From time to time. You don't want to do that all day, every day. That's not what life is about.
Or you bring up a good point. You can actually get there, but does it feel in your frequency? You could get to a beach for a week and be running a business, but it could be like, oh, I borrowed money from my parents. I got a credit card that I maxed out, and I'm just sitting here. And how am I going to get through the next week? You know, so you did the week. And like, there's a lot of people who do that and then don't realize, because that's what I was doing when I first started. I was doing horoscopes on the road. I was all over the place. And I was realizing I need to have a place to settle into, this place to grow. People would use it as empire. And this is where I want to get into the whole tower card, is people look at it as that as only like a successful thing too. Or it's as if it's some big conglomerate operation that you're rolling. When it's like, no, the tower moment could be you being lazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's all coming apart the more that you keep being lazy, right? Like, the more couches you sleep on to where you're not doing the work. I'm not, because I used to be a couch sleeper with friends and people and random people and weird shit just to get through. But it's because I had the determination of where I was going and the vision of that I was going to be ascending in my life and I was positive while doing it, that it wasn't an extended period or it didn't keep going down. And that's when you know it's wrong, is like, I just have been on a fucking couch for 5 years now. You know, it's like, well, where's the vision at? Where is it pointed at? The tower card isn't like, and some people are afraid of success. Like, oh, it's all going to fall down anyway. It's like, when it comes to this money thing, I'm like, do you realize that money never goes away? The energy and the frequency of the vibration of exchange never leaves. In astrology, there's 12 signs. Do you think that the universe just pulls one of the, like Taurus that rolls money out? Like, nope, that's gone. Self-worth, gone. Yeah. If you don't have self-worth, there's no such thing as there will never be money. There will always be something that we're exchanging with. There's always going to be relationships, because unless, I guess that's what's weird. If any of the things in life were to disappear, then this reality wouldn't exist, right? Identity, soul, friendships, people, groups, like all these things, career, a purpose in life. Like beliefs, all these things that people think are just like erased, it's going to be erased. That is the biggest illusion that there is. The illusions are the erasing of the core fundamentals of alchemy itself. There will always be, like lead turning into gold is more than the physical aspect of it. We're at a place to write right now that, guess what? Gold turned into the dollar. We turned lead into gold in a weird way by switching that into a dollar, into a fiat system right now. And right now, the idea is that we turn paper into gold, right? Lead into gold, but it's not going to be that anymore. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to figure this out, because that's the big fear right now, is money. Where do I put my money? Are we going to survive? Or how is it going to happen? It's like, oh, there's going to be always an exchange of commodity, and whatever that is, you'll figure out how to get it. The universe didn't throw us all down here to have it to where it's everybody's fucked and everybody's not going to have anything. Do you think that if there's 330 million people in America Do you think they have 330 million Americans that are going to fucking take everything from you? No, that would mean that we would be all working for the same unit to take from each other.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that there's so many things here that the Tower card is like, people look at it as a big, like, because the spiritual community especially, like, God, money's evil. Or this is bad, or you run a corporation, or you're doing a business, or you're doing, it's like, that's a Tower card. I'm like, a Tower card is anything that is not in alignment that is coming down in your life. It's very simple to see.
People don't understand what spirituality really means.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you dress a certain way. It doesn't mean you eat a certain way. At the end of the day, all it means is I've figured out how to tap in to divine energy and use it. Now, divine energy is just divine energy. It doesn't really care who uses it or how you use it, because you can use it for evil. You've been doing it for decades. Like the illusion.
Forever.
yeah. The illusion is that I'm just this lowly human. I'm this separate individual, and life is just arbitrarily happening to me. That's the illusion. The reality is, no, you're actually connected to a huge web of energy. And spirituality means I figured out how to connect to it. I figured out how to start playing with it, and I figured out how to start using it.
Yeah.
That's all it really means. But then the question comes down to, this is where the judgment comes in. How are you using it? What are you using it for? Are you using it for the greater good? Are you using it to help people? Are you using it to help yourself? Or are you using it, like black magic, because you're selfish, because you want something bad to happen to somebody? It doesn't matter. You can still use it. But we have this better than or worse than judgment. Like, you have the manifester who is manifesting nothing but everything for himself, just so he can be a selfish piece of shit. And then you have the manifester who's manifesting everything to help people. They're tapped into the same energy.
Right.
Like spirituality, it's all the same source of energy. The only thing spirituality is have you figured out how to tap into it and start using it?
Right. And when it comes to money, it's like, if you think of that web you're speaking about, there's people who know their self-worth, have created money, they've got a job, a business or whatever, and they're exchanging in the same web of other people that have something of value that's exchanging. But when you don't have money, you're at another level. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just that you're at the level with others that don't see the self-worth, that don't see it within their self, and you guys are all bartering and exchanging off of that.
It's a frequency match.
Right? So it's like levels to me of just like, there's a web of a lot of people here, and the more that the dark keeps trying to get people in fear, they throw and they make that the new web of a frequency line, that more people are in that place. We got to have to where people are not going to go into that place. It's not so much about whether it's the dollar's changing or that's changing or what that is. It's more about that frequency level of like, hey, we know our value, and we know that we're dealing with other people with value. Like that, because I remember when I was broke and I never believed I would ever make money. I got to that place for a long time. I never believed it would be possible. I was like, this is no money, And I remember being like, well, I looked around my life. Oh my God, everybody around me that I'm dealing with feels the same way. Everybody that I'm exchanging with, the lovers that I'm picking, same thing. To where like I was getting to a place in my life where I was thinking like, maybe I'm just gonna live off the grid, like literally off the grid. I went through a time where I didn't file my taxes, and it was just like all these things just build harder and harder against yourself because you start buying into that story. And I think that that's where you're right. Like it's the same energy of the manifestation. It could be used in different ways. But I feel like it's also that web that you speak about. It's not just an anomaly. It's not that person's lucky and you're not. There's no such thing as luck. We all chose to come down here, and we all gave each other, when we came down here, the best fucking skills ever. It's just whether or not we're going to understand it, use it, and own it. It's like too many people are afraid to own that power within themselves. And you can only know that by going through those moments where you don't own it. And that's what I think the hardest part. And I think self-worth is probably the biggest commodity in somebody's life. You got to value yourself enough to even understand you. They say know thyself, but it's like, that's great. You can know yourself, but have you owned your value of yourself with the knowing?
Yeah. And Well, again, it kind of goes back to the whole perception of the argument about guns. You know, money is the same way. Did the gun kill somebody? No, the person holding it. The same thing with money. People say money is the root of all evil. No, it is not. The love of money is the root of all evil. Like, if the person who has the said money does some evil shit with it, that doesn't make money evil. And again, I contend that this was the dark side, excuse me, the dark side putting this little rumor into the spiritual community that poverty is a virtue, because all you got to do is tell the fucking humans something and they'll believe it and they'll enslave themselves. Right. Tell them that money is bad. Oh, and I can prove it. See this asshole over here? He has a lot of money. That's proof that money is bad. So now you got all these fucking people over here saying, oh, money is bad. You're an asshole because you have money. No, you just bought into this stupid bullshit lie. Now, if you keep living on that frequency, you're never going to have shit. You're going to be miserable and angry, and you're never going to experience anything. But if you were to allow yourself to understand that it is possible, no, money is not bad. You can do with it whatever you want. If you think this rich asshole should be doing this with money, oh, you should be helping people and you should be feeding the homeless and you should, well, why don't you go do it? Why don't you go start you a business? You make you a bunch of money and you start doing it. You know, like
the same people that you go to the Vatican and it's got gold everywhere, and the Pope mobile alone is probably more expensive than all of our fucking nicest cars that anybody has, with the bulletproof glass and all that shit, and the way that he takes a helicopter and all the fucking Swiss fucking guard that they've got that they have to pay, and more importantly, the Vatican Bank, and asking all the world people to put all their money in there is the same people telling you, yeah, be meek, and that's the only way you'll get to Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they're the most obviously not meek.
Yeah.
Right? Or just, I couldn't believe this. I don't know if you heard what happened last week, right at the end of last week, just like 4 or 5 days ago. The Pope gave a gift, because King Charles is about to be coronated, of the original, and this is where it gets interesting. I want to get your opinion of if you think this is true or not from my hunch. The Pope gave splinters of wood from the original true cross of Jesus Christ. They've never said that they had it, ever. They just popped it. That's like the biggest story I think I've ever heard of in my life. That the fucking Catholic Church the whole time has had the true cross of Jesus Christ. So he said, the Pope gave as a gift to King Charles, here's a couple splinters of it, right? And they put it into a cross, right? And then the original cross that they had, they added now it in silver and made it all glammy, and they put the original splinters, some of them. My question to you is, one, of course, we know these motherfuckers have, if you think of value, it's everything from gold to even like if you were in Catholicism or Christianity, I think that the number one thing in the world would be the cross of Jesus, right? Like to have. Mm-hmm. They obviously have it. But they obviously, when they say they gave it as a gift, gave a couple, here you go, little king. Like, here's a couple splinters. You know that they're fucking greedy as fuck and just like didn't give. Why didn't you give the whole cross, right? Mm-hmm. If you're really about being spiritually like, you know, good and right, I can see them being like, just a couple splinters. We want to keep this forever. But I think the crazy part is like, these motherfuckers have a lot more, and they have way more. But I think it's interesting on how, I mean, that's a whole nother crazy spiritual debate about how they're anointing a king with that, and they're making that kind of the front piece now of like this reality with the Pope. And there's been a rift between the Catholic Church and the Church of England since the 1500s, when Henry VIII said, fuck you, we're not going to be Catholic, and started Protestant, right? And so anyway, I just feel like, what do you feel about, like, is there a true cross? And it's not like they've put that on display for people to ever see, right? Now they are. And they just throw it out in the reality, and they give a couple splinters, like, here you go, like, because it's also kind of like a fuck you, I'm above you thing. Like, I've got the true cross, but I gave you a couple splinters. 0.4 inches. Splinters. I feel like that's where, like, you know, people get into this place of like, you're told by these people tell you to, you know, being in poverty is something to be proud of. Yet they sit there, and I'm using the Catholic Church as an example because they literally say, like, the meek will inherit the earth.
Yeah.
What do you feel like with that situation? Because I don't know. To me, maybe it didn't. And you can be honest with me if it doesn't blow your mind. But to me, I'm like, you're telling me the whole time that they fucking have the true cross, and now you're just like, it's like the UFO thing lately. It's just like, yeah, UFOs exist. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and now it's just like, yeah, we do have the Christ cross, and here's a couple fucking splinters.
Well, no, it absolutely blows my mind. But where my mind goes with that is kind of in a different direction. Like, do I doubt that they actually have the real cross? I don't doubt it. That would not surprise me to hear that.
Yeah.
The question is, why are they dripping that knowledge out to the public
right now?
That's where I'm like, okay, well, what purpose is that meant to serve? Because like everything they've been doing over the past 3 years, well, longer, but especially the past 3 years, has been for a very specific reason. And it's a very mind-bogglingly intricate, abstract reason that I still have yet to figure their method out. Like every time I think I know, oh, they did it for this right here, then once it's revealed that this is why they did it, I'm like, oh shit, I never would have guessed that. So my opinion on that is that ultimately it has something to do with awakening the masses to how fucking corrupt the system is. But the domino effect and the connect the dots process that they're using to reach that point, I don't know. I couldn't even imagine.
I mean, like today, Tucker Carlson, the #1 fucking show on television, he just got fired.
Yeah.
Right? So there's no more Tucker, right? And let's be real. I watch him because he's the only one speaking some fucking truth about situations that the media won't say. Mm-hmm. But it's like, is that part of the psyop, or is that part, or are they trying to reveal things? And then at the same day, Don Lemon, as he used to call him, but Don Lemon just got fired on the same day too. I'm like, that there's no coincidences, right? Yeah. Or the fact that at the end of last week, you see the Pope come out and here's the true cross of Jesus, and here's parts of it for the anointment of King Charles, which is Henry VIII's rolling in his grave right now. Martin Luther's rolling in his grave. Like, you know, like the idea of the Renaissance was leaving the Catholic Church, right? So especially kings, right? To be sovereign on their own through God, not through the church and the Pope, right? The idea that the Pope wears a 3-tier tiara, that's like the ultimate king, right? And I'm the king of you, the king, and you do my bidding. That's how it used to be. So now that they're coming together, like, oh yeah, we're good now. That's just like ooh, that's weird. And then what? Are we going to see Don Lemon and fucking Tucker Carlson do a show together now on some new fucking thing?
I mean,
the polar opposites coming together, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the first thing that I think that should probably indicate to the masses, because you still have, obviously, Fox is the right, CNN is the left. And to see them both get rid of like their main people on the same day, maybe that's going to let people know, oh shit, maybe both sides are being controlled by the same puppet master. Maybe that's the first, well, not the first, but the most obvious little inkling that, oh, maybe it doesn't really matter if I'm a Democrat or Republican. It's like all the same fucking thing. You know, like I kind of, and I could be wrong. I'm probably
Well, it's the same thing with being a Christian or a Catholic, because that's what just happened.
Yeah.
That so it's the opposite. Instead of firing or letting go, they're coming together. And then a weekend happens, and then, now the left top dude is gone, and the right top dude is gone.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, is there a puppet? Well, it's not is. There is a puppet master to all these systems. All of them, right? So they're fucking so it's making people who are like, well, you're a Catholic, so you believe in Mary, where I'm only supposed to go to Jesus, right? It's making everybody go, oh, okay, well, I guess let's mesh this all together. And then also, let's mesh this all together. But at the same time, it's like, I think a deeper wake up going on of like, what's about to come in? Because that's what's interesting. These are like, there's always like this goes with the tower too, two people. Like there's two things falling at the same time and two things coming together at the same time. What's going to be that one thing, if you think of like the devil and how it's got the chain of two, like what's the one thing that's going to try and come in? That's what we have to pay attention to in this moment that I feel is coming right now. Because it's like, they've got the world to, after 3 years not being, they feared a lot of people. People didn't fall for it, but many did for years. It was just about that. Now it's like then the money thing, and now they're just like throwing in these weird curveballs. Mm-hmm. But it feels like it's like the grand entrance of something's coming in while everybody's starting to get mellowed out and feel like it's all normal now. That's right when you do it, like right when you get people to buy your spell and then buy that, oh, it's not that bad. They won't do this any longer. And calm it down for just a second, right? Actually, when I was watching that David Koresh Waco, Texas thing, one of the women who was 9 years old, who unfortunately had to go through the horrible shit with this guy, he would he had a paddle. And so he would lay them on him and he would smack their butt, but the worst what he would do is when they weren't anticipating it. So he would say, you're not, don't do this. And then, all right, you're fine. And then she would let go and just be like, oh, okay, it's not going to happen. And that's when he would do it. When she wasn't expecting it. I feel like that's what's happening right now. It's like, oh yeah, like everything's fine. Don't worry about COVID no more. Don't worry about, oh yeah, don't worry. Catholic Church and the King of England, because the King of England is the head of the Church of England. He's the Pope of the Church of England. Now, that's not the term, but he's the head of the church since 1532 into 33 when Henry VIII seceded from and did the schism. So it's like you have them coming together for the first time in 500 years. 500 years. 500. And then you've got Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon, who are the most opposite, who made fun of each other and talked shit on each other. But the opposing forces being fired. Something's coming in. Something's coming in.
They're trying to open the eyes. They're. Now, I'm not saying that there's not something else coming in, but I have a huge feeling that a big part of this, everything that they've been doing, they've been trying to get all these people who are spiritually, well, not spiritually, but just dead asleep, period, to think, oh, all those crazy conspiracy theorist people.
Right.
Well, maybe they're on to something. And they're, get them to perk their ears up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, the right and the left both did the same thing at the same time, and they're trying to come together. That's my only thought. But usually, whenever they pull something crazy, they got you looking here, and then something happens over here.
Yeah,
so that's why trying to pay attention is so hard, because it's like, pay attention to what? While I'm sitting here focused on what's going on with Fox News, and they're over here focused on what's going on with CNN. You got both sides looking over here, and they're going to do something over here.
Right.
And nobody's looking.
Right.
And I don't know. I get so... I'll get a migraine trying to figure it out sometimes, to the point to where I'll just kind of step back and I don't know, let's just see what they do. I'm at the point now where I don't give a fuck.
Bro, I mean, I think it's more of like I call it like it's like a curiosity game.
Yeah.
Like it tickles my fucking brain. It like tickles that part of me, that investigative part that likes to figure shit out. Because I guess that's also the path in which that gets you to figure out manifesting or astrology or tarot. Like there's a deeper part, or the essence of a cult, which is always taken the wrong way. It's just hidden or out of view, right? It's like occult practice is just hidden out of view. And of course, it comes from astrology. When a planet occults another planet, that you can't see it. Like if the moon occulted Mars, like the full moon that was in Gemini this fall, it was like, yep, that was exactly what happened. You can't see the planet anymore, right? But I feel like it's that energy of that willing to be, not afraid, right? Like to look into things and try and figure things out for the better. That's, I think, part of the process. I think it's kind of one of those games that it's like a puzzle that you don't sit at the puzzle all fucking day, you're going to lose your mind.
Yeah.
If you're a fucking puzzle person 24 hours a day, I'd fucking go insane. But I do like walking back to that table on the puzzle. Not maybe every day.
Yeah.
But every so often I like going or it's like building, a model ship. My grandfather did that. And I was like, it took him like 3 years. But it's like, it's like that thing that you come to and you go, oh, look at that new piece.
Yeah.
But I think you're right that they are trying to wake people up, because I feel like we're watching a movie on the TV. It's a preset movie, and you can't fall for it. You can't lose yourself into it.
Yeah, they are. They absolutely are. And the only thing that I could think to do is to prepare myself the best that I could. So I got a little lockbox filled with gold and silver. Got about 6 months of food and water stacked up in the garage, and it's just there, just in case.
Right.
I don't know, because like I sit back and I watch some people. Well, like you said, that was a real good point when you said, just come to it every now and then and don't drive yourself nuts. Because I've watched so many people, they'll go crazy. They'll go crazy and get so locked into it and so scared and so obsessed with it. And I've heard tale of people who have completely destroyed their whole lives just sitting around and obsessing over all the horrible things that are happening. And it's like, I heard a good quote one time years ago: when you get the message, hang up the phone. The system is corrupt. Okay, everything that you ever thought you knew is a lie. Everything they've ever told you is a lie. And once you get that, and once you tap in and start getting in touch with yourself, getting in touch with your frequency and your energy, and start taking your own power back, and then, okay, maybe leave that alone. Or unless if it tickles your brain, then fucking A, if you have a good time doing it,
Well, you're right. I think what happen if you think of it from a manifesting standpoint, if all you're doing is trying to manifest from playing in that fucking crazy conspiracy puzzle all day 24/7, that's all you're manifesting. But what's crazy is it's not something that you can actually manifest. You can't manifest the change of the conspiracy if it right, like your frequency is not creating something for yourself. You're creating maybe the thoughts or the ideas, but you're not also focusing on building a good relationship, building something that's more than yourself, right? You're just trying to tickle the brain so much that it stops. If you tickle somebody for too long, then it's like, okay, well, I can stop.
Yeah.
Right? But then people go past that point, and they go past that point. And that's where it becomes like an obsession.
Yeah, and it programs you to be in a frequency of fear. Like you said, no, you can't manifest the conspiracy to go away, but you can manifest that you either are or are not in a good position in life to be able to deal with it.
Yeah.
So some people, and I almost fell into this trap too, but I've seen people and heard of people who get locked into that, and no matter what information you're taking in all the time, it's programming you. So if you're doom and gloom and doom and gloom and doom and gloom and doom and gloom, and you're programming your frequency to be set at fear, no, the conspiracy is not going to stop happening. But whenever something big does pop off, are you going to be in a position in life to where you're okay?
Yeah.
It's
like deep sea diving. I feel like it's like you go down there. It's something that you don't do every day, right? You do it for an objective and a goal, like Titanic, for example, or something. But there's the bends that could happen. You can't just like one day go so deep into it and then go, oh, I'm just pulling myself back out. No, you'll fucking pop your brain. Like you have to do a fucking slow climb and release the pressure and the oxygen before you can come back, right? And people don't realize that. Like you can go if you go too deep down a rabbit hole, and this is a tower moment, right? It's like you can get too deep into something and not realize you just can't come up to air right whenever you want. Like, no, if you're all the way down there, it's also remembering, all right, I'm going to slowly pull myself out of it. So I feel like it's about the learning how to pull yourself out of things and know that a tower moment's coming when it's like, am I going too deep to where I'm not paying attention to my own life, my own happiness? Because that's the other part where the conspiracy stuff can make some people just lose their happiness of life and just think this whole world's fucked. When it's like it's and we've all been there, but it's like that's where you got to learn to pull yourself out. Like, okay, and it might not be a day, it might not be a week, but it's just about learning to pull yourself out and at least get your information from people that are willing to bring you back always up and not take you so far down deep where they keep you there the whole time, and then they don't ever fucking give you a chance to take a breath and fucking find a way out,
Because ultimately it's getting to the point where, like Dolores Cannon talks about all the time, or did, where the split, because right now what I see it's still, where the two are like this, and it's still getting closer and closer and closer and closer, and then it's eventually going to get to a point where even if you are aware of what's going on, and even if you're the most, I hate to use the word awake for this, but awake to what's been going on, if you've been locked in a vibration of fear and panic, then the tower moment's coming, but how are you going to deal with it? You're gonna get stuck on that low vibrational timeline, while all the rest you know, have programmed themselves to be in a high frequency. Whenever everything does crash and burn, it's, you know, they'll make it through and they'll be okay, and we'll enter
Because
into
it's going to be a moment of opportunity for good. That's the focus. It's like, oh, if it comes down, look at all the opportunities available instead of the loss of something. It's like, what do you mean? Like, finally that wall came down? All right. Fucking, I can walk through there, no problem. And I think that we're seeing that over this last 3 years in the most condensed period of all time, where there are more opportunities now than ever, but people are locked into the story that make them feel like the world's more restricted.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to, oh, well, if I post something online, it's going to be taken down. It's like that's your choice. There's routes. There's ways to figure it out. And those walls are coming down, because I don't know if people are ready for true freedom. That's what the dark's feeling, though, too. But it's like, I'm thinking of it as like, you know, when it comes to all the issues that you're seeing, it's like people are afraid of full freedom, which would mean like, well, if we don't have the money to pay for the mailman and we don't have the money to pay for Social Security, then that's just what it's going to be. But people are too afraid of the freedom of like so many different areas and things that don't have to deal with the bad, which, you know, like there's a very difficult moment here, I feel, that's in the collective of allowing yourself to realize that freedom is everything, but it also is the freedom to remember how to get through things. That you've freed yourself from the attachment.
Yeah, it also means responsibility, because, you know, with slavery, you have somebody controlling you, telling you what to do, you know, making you do this and breathing over your shoulder and telling you have to do that. And then when all that's gone, guess what? You got to take responsibility for your own fucking life. And that scares the hell out of most people.
I know.
It scares the shit out of them. I think we touched on this last time, that we were talking something about, you know, to become self-employed. And I remember the girl I was dating back when I very first started, you know, reading tarot, and she would kind of make snooty remarks like, oh, but is that guaranteed income? Is that sustainable? Is that stable? Well, guess what? She lost her job like 6 months later. But, you know, like, it's like, well, yeah, it's my business is sustainable as long as I stay on my shit and keep doing my job. But so many people are so afraid of having that responsibility. Your whole livelihood is dependent on what you do.
Yeah.
There is nobody else that you can point the finger to. There's nobody else who's carrying you. It's all on you. I think it scares people.
Yeah, but that's where the empowerment is, and the better life is, honestly. When it's not about you being empowered, right? Or you as a powerful person. It's more about that you have the freedom in your life, which I love that you brought up the responsibility, because it's like, if you're responsible, then you have more freedoms. You know, like, but if you're just wanting to give the authority to something else, well, this person takes care of everything and I don't have to do anything. It's like, okay, that's what you're saying about everything in life. Everything in life is, I don't have to do anything. They'll figure it out. And then you wonder why you don't get much more. It's like, well, you didn't want to take the authority of yourself, your own life, your responsibilities to create things. So they have the authority and they're choosing what you get and what you don't get. It's like people who put their authority into like an agent as a sports person, you know, and all that stuff. It's like, sometimes the free agents are the ones that get to move around because they know their value and have the biggest bid go, right? Whereas if you have the agent who's like, trust me, I know this guy and I'm going to do it all for you, instead of being like, well, I don't know if I really want to go on that team. I don't know if I want to go live in Chicago, you know? But I guess, well, it's good money or whatever. And it's like, that's where you see some of the biggest deals happen in sports or even in life, right? You think it's the best, but if it's not in your frequency, it doesn't matter if the money came, your life could go bad, the place you live at, that's when your partner breaks up with you. The domino tower effect just goes 9/11.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a plane that did it. You know what I mean? That, you know.
Yeah. So
that's a tower moment.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, I don't think there is any way to avoid. Let me reword that. Okay. So it all comes back to your mentality. I tell my clients all the time, success is not a dollar amount. It's not, you know,
or a relationship like guys today and girls and all that shit.
A relationship, or it's none of these things that we think. Success is a mentality, and that mentality, like what you touched on a minute ago, has a lot to do with how you respond to challenges and obstacles. Like you just said, that's an opportunity. That's the success mentality. The failures mentality is, oh, woe is me, poopy pants, it's all over. The success mentality is, that's an opportunity. Two people sitting in the same situation, both get dealt the same hand. This person perceives it as an opportunity. This person perceives it as this horrible thing happening to me. And guess what? That's what each one of them is going to manifest. And it's a shift. It's a shift in perspective. So it depends on when you say preventing a tower moment. Well, how do you define a tower moment? Like, if you have the right mentality to perceive that as an opportunity, then it doesn't really matter what happens.
I think tower moment to me too, using your analogy, would be like in poker in Texas Hold'em. You wait for the last card on the river. You could have two aces or something and be like, because there's that mental, place where it's only an opportunity if I have like aces and kings or queens or something like that. And it's like you get dealt a 3 and a 7, right? You're just like, shit. But that doesn't matter, because if you see the first 3 cards and maybe there's a king and maybe there's like an 8 or whatever, and you're like, I don't see anything. That the next 2 cards might just be a 3 and a 7, right? Mm-hmm. To give you a 2 pair or whatever. Mm-hmm. You don't know. And the person holding the 2 aces might be like, oh yeah, I'm fucking everything like that, because we get in these caught of mind of opportunity is only when it looks like this. Mm-hmm. 2 aces, right? Or kings. And the people who win and fucking all the time are the ones that see everything as an opportunity. Like, oh, I see, I can make this a flush. Like, you know what I mean? Or I can make this a this. While the other person's only thinking about the biggest, best thing and way to do it. And then that card on the river comes. And that's a tower moment for the guy or the woman or whoever's playing, that's just like, what do you mean? I have the best 2 cards. That's the only opportunities they see are when they're good. Mm-hmm. When you got to be able to take something and be like, there's an opportunity here from this. Like, and you'll know to fold if it's like, oh, okay. You do it in your head enough to you're like, yeah, it's not going to make sense. I'm not going to just blow my fucking load on a gamble that something will come and go against the math either. It is a state of mind. It is a state of mind of opportunity. And I use that Texas Hold'em analogy because in my Pluto Masterclass, I went into that. I'm like, people have not realized that it's not luck. It's how you have the will. If you get cancer, the stories of people that fucking get through are the people who have the will to go through it, and they have a determination to, there's something inside of you that there's this energy within you that's like, it's the opportunity to get out. It's not I'm just going to fall into this and I'm done, you know?
Dude, I heard this fucking awesome story one time where there was this woman who was diagnosed with like terminally ill cancer, and the doctor pulled her husband into the other room and said, sorry, she's only got like 2 weeks left. There's nothing I can do. And the husband slammed the dude up against the wall and said, don't you say a fucking word to her. Scared the shit out of him. And then the husband walked in and said, honey, it's great. You're going to get over this. You're going to heal. Everything's good. Come on, let's go home. And she went, really? And she got all happy, and then they went home. She survived. It disappeared.
I mean, there it is.
Because she believed that, see, that's the thing. Like you said, with cancer, I don't know how much I want to say about that, but when the doctor tells you you got cancer, that does something to you.
Right.
You know, your belief, that energy that you keep sending to your body is what is creating
Which keeps coming through TV and internet all day.
Mm-hmm. And your mind is so much more fucking powerful than they ever wanted to let you believe.
Right.
It's insane.
Well, I mean, and that's why placebo effects and so forth, right? Like, it's pretty wild on how placebo effects stronger than the actual medication all the time. Like, you can tell somebody that they took the medicine when they didn't, and they will feel better and that they got healed. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, nope, sorry, you did the placebo. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that we live in a placebo reality, right? Like, it's like every little thing is what you're being told that this is how it's got to be, or that, especially look at the school system. It's just like, unless you have a degree, and then they try to always show the studies that people with college degrees, blah, 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 blah. Well, what was funny is they did that with people who took the experimental shot. It was people that were high school diplomas that didn't, right? It was weird though. People with the highest degrees didn't.
That's what I was going to say.
But it was the people with the middle degrees, like bachelors, that was like the highest percentage. Yep, we're all taking it, right? Because of the indoctrination of it. But when you get to a higher degree, like you had to go through those moments of like, fuck, I got to take on more work. I got to probably say no. I'm going to stay in this path when people are saying, why are you doing like English literature as your bachelor's? You'd be so much better in business or something. It's like, no, I'm going to go for this because I want to keep studying and I'm going to go get my doctorate and to be a philosopher and right? It's like you have to go through these like, because people are always in your head and in your faces and you and your own self. Can I do this or not? To get a bachelor's, that's like, okay, you just got to go through high school and you're usually being forced by your parents because they want to get you out of the house. Right? Like there's this whole like indoctrination system that Pink Floyd brought up. And that's why Pink Floyd, The Wall, it's all about that wall. Like it's the fear wall. If I don't do this, if I don't go to school, like we don't need no education. It's like just keep pushing people through this meat grinder and fucking making them into the meat that the big rich people just fucking keep eating. And it's crazy because that movie fucking, that album, you know, most people just sing the song, have no idea what it's about. Like, oh yeah, Pink Floyd's just doing this, or even Dark Side of the Moon, which I just take the title. Oh, yeah. Dark Side of the fucking Moon. People don't, it goes right over their fucking head.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I heard it on the radio. My dad liked that. It's like, okay.
Man, I've actually seen, not to steer off track, but I think I told you about this. I've seen the footage, the real footage from the moon.
Right.
It was leaked onto YouTube back in like 2014, and I'm right before I went homeless. I'm in the pit of my alcoholism, and I'm just sitting around digging through YouTube, watching crazy shit, and I'm loaded drunk one day, and I watched the video of the actual footage where they find all these big, huge buildings and structures and these crashed spaceships and bodies.
I know,
like alien bodies. And, well, they look like us, but, you know.
Dr. Stephen Greer talks about it a lot.
Yeah, and I saw that footage, and I look back, because at the time, I knew nothing about anything to do with anything. I didn't know that there was this concerted effort to suppress all this information that was being hidden from us. I just thought, oh, okay, cool. Well, that makes sense. That's the funny thing about my awakening is I was crazy before I awakened.
Yeah.
The more I started awakening to the truth, the more level my head got. So I see that, and I'm just like, oh, cool. Well, that makes sense. I bet you. And then I went back and tried to find it about a week later. I couldn't find it anywhere. I was like, what? Scrubbed it.
They scrubbed that one fast.
Yeah, real quick.
But, you know, it's like, you're not going, I think, off the wrong subject, because everything from what are we seeing right now, that's the other weird part of the magician card, too, is it has to understand the environment and what it's in to do the magic. So some people say, like, I can't believe you pay attention to the news. I'm like, Jordan Maxwell said this best, because I used to work with him. I helped build his website in 2011 and redo it, and I got to hang out with him. And news, north, east, west, and south. That's what it stands for. To understand what's happening. To understand the complete picture, which is the cross of Earth, if you see Earth, and to understand you want to have the information, whether it's bullshit or not, to understand what you're going through in life, to understand what's coming at you or what not, right? So some people think it's not spiritual to even, it's not like I sit and watch the fucking news. I pay attention to when it naturally just pops up in my places. As you said before, you've created your own algorithm on your stories for Instagram that you can see. Right? That's another important part. It's not like I'm following Kim Kardashian. I don't want to just be watching fucking videos of her talking about her ass all day. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like everything that I follow on YouTube or anything is only bringing me info that's going to pop up, that's going to be news for me. Or even in my Apple News, I'm only connected to like popular mechanics, weird things about the universe, or weird things that it's not that I'm going to take them at face value, but it's like, oh, that's interesting that's coming out. That's coming from the northeast, west, and south, so I can start to put things together and to be able to be like, all right, if I'm manifesting, if I know that right now, let's say when Trump became president, I'm like, and I voted for him, and I totally was advocated for him too. I was like, oh, great time for me to start a second corporation. The tax fucking thing went through. So especially in politics, people are like, oh, don't pay attention to that because you're, I'm like, well, as the person who's the CEO, the tax benefits that I've used that are ending in 2025, That's what people don't even realize is when Biden gets up there and says, oh, we need to change the tax code. It already is going. It was only from 2017 till it ends in 2025. So people don't realize they can't see through shit because they fall for shit without understanding or reading the tax code or whatever. So it's been a great time to be a corporation, any kind of corporation, because of the tax laws and the ways that you could do pass-throughs. But believe it or not, Trump got rid of so many write-offs. It was a different way to write things off. You buy a vehicle, not lease, that is a write-off, right? Because it's equipment. So he made it to base the economy based off other people buying big goods from other people and write everybody off for that to build the economy up, right? So if you understand what's happening in the basics of what these little things are happening in the news, because they're little, that's a way to go through life better. People wonder, how did I get here? Well, it's pretty simple. Fucking learning in 2013, fucking after doing astrology and YouTube and all that shit and on the internet and selling readings, and then realizing that Obama had the self-employment tax of 35% and having to pay fucking out of the 70K I made that year, paid 30,000 fucking bucks in taxes, which was a fucking bitter moment in my life, but I didn't take it down. I took it up. I'm like, all right, I'm going to figure this shit out. My accountant's like, we got to make you a corporation. And then I went through 2014, 2015, and that's why I voted for Trump, because we were getting fucked as corporations, and that's people. Remember, corporations are people too. That's another thing that people don't realize. Mm-hmm. And I remember when Trump came and then they did that deal, I was like, boom. And my accountant and I talked, and he's like, this is what you have to do, and this is how you have to set it up. This is how you have to start buying things, and you can't write off your haircut anymore. Because under Obama, you used to be able to, but you can't under Trump. So people think, oh, Trump's horrible. It's like, he just did it different. But he also made it easier for people to, if you understand how to do it. Yeah. Most people don't. And so that's the interesting thing is people get so pissed about where people get, but it's like, it's not brain science. It's not fucking brain surgery. The shit was fucking in front of you, and then that's where some of it is like, it's pretty simple shit. But, I think a lot of people take the whole thing as this whole thing, but it's like, when you hear Biden saying we need to change the tax code and blah, 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 as if it's never going to change, it's like, it's not a permanent change that Trump made. That was the deal. It was like only to go to 2025.
Well, I guess in the question that I would have in today's day and age, because the reason I don't pay attention to the news is because with everything that's been happening and with everything that's happening now and with everything that's coming, it's so fucking convoluted. Like what they're doing and why, and trying to fucking decode it. Like what we were talking about earlier with Tucker and the other guy. Like trying to decode that. Like it's not just at face value. This shit was not an accident. It was not a coincidence. That was done that way for a reason.
Right.
And trying to follow this mind-bogglingly abstract fucking connect the dots trail to figure out what the point of that was, to me, like, gives me a migraine. So what my question is, what process do you use to know what to look at and how to apply it when it comes to the news?
I think that's where, if you use Jordan Maxwell's example of the news being northeast, west, south, as astrologers, we're looking at the planets, and it's all based off those same understandings of declination in north and south, east and west, where the rising is. That my whole life is based off where the positions of the planets are. Same thing in the day, right? Like, are you going to go outside and at midnight and try and go knock on doors? No, you'd rather do that at noon, right? But if you were in the nightclub scene, you'd want to do that at midnight. That's where the most people are at a club, to go knock on doors, to go find some job or find things at life. You probably wouldn't want to go at noon because they're all asleep and all the clubs are closed. So it's like the basics of understanding like where things are. But as an astrologer, it's like, well, there's a fucking eclipse. We just had one, right? The same one from 2004. But the main thing was it was in square to Pluto. It's like, I guess that's where you get into prophetic work and prophecy. That it's not that I have a problem with the manifesting thing. I think it's I think it's about it's all integrated, that there is a prophetic energy happening, a predetermined element. It's how we deal with it, though. Like, it's predetermined that you're going to face a moment in your life where your parents are going to die. If you take it from a human perspective, it's going to happen. Or maybe not. Maybe you die before your parents. But it's like, in astrology, it's like, this is showing up. How are you going to deal with it? Same way as you brought up, like, if the world was to collapse, how'd you deal with it? It's about trying to find the opportunities. So for me, it's like, oh, there's an opportunity here. There's an exposing right now of that the Catholic Church has the true cross of Jesus and that they only give a little splinter, that they're taking back over the Church of England and trying to save their ass because they've lost so many people and bridge them together, that the Christian community is about to become one. Again. So to me, it's not a headache. It's more of like a... But that's where astrology helps with history. Like,
I was going to say, it's probably a little bit easier because you use astrology with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's one thing that I'm not too great with is... I mean, I understand how astrological energies behave, but as far as what the planets are doing,
right.
I don't know anything about that. That's why when you start rattling off all that stuff, I'm like...
But you know, that's where we work so well, is because you know how to help people integrate in the fucking trench. I'm like the person in the trench looking up, being like, they're about to throw a bomb and it'll be here in about an hour. And you're the one, all right, everyone. Da-da-da-da-da. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like how to actually, like, that's where people have always had issues with me, is like, I can fucking call it out. I can predict it. I can give the evolution and the soul shit, but it's like the actual human and the mental ways of actually creating the understanding of when you're in the reality. That's what tarot is. Tarot is what brought the occult and the astrology and stuff to a human element. You could look at a card and see a fucking person doing something. Whereas if I'm talking about Neptune, you can't. Sure, they use deities fucking in Greece, right? It'd be like, okay, that's Poseidon, right? But again, let me try and connect Poseidon to you to make sense in this reality of this moment, right? Like, it's not as easy as on a tarot card. That's why those were made. It's like, oh, a page of swords. You could actually feel like, yeah, this is a moment of a communication, a truth coming out, or at least right? Because it's a page, right? Pages for kings are what bring messages, especially the swords. It's going to be a swift, fast, and quick message. It's going to be very fast. Whereas, like, that's a very mercurial thing, but it's like, again, I could say that depending on the sign, though, and all this kind of crazy stuff, and the aspect to it, it might be Mercury in its home sign of Gemini, which would be Page of Swords. But if it's square to Saturn, it's meeting the Hermit in a weird way. That's like, stop, kid. Did you make sure that the king knows what he's doing? You know what I mean? So it's like translating that is, even for astrologers, the thing that's a lifelong journey of translation. Whereas I feel like the gifts of manifesting are things that we can use every day. And I was just talking to my stepdad last night about how just, even since you've come on, I've been doing positive affirmations. Like, today's gonna be a good day.
Yeah.
Or instead of like, when I'm late, like, I'm such a fucking idiot. Right? It's like, that's not a healthy thing for me to do. But that's the thing that I don't teach. That's not my fucking cup.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where the whole idea of integration with the collective is so important, because nobody's better than anybody. We all have the best pieces that are the most important part to this whole thing.
Yeah.
Astrologers are just, especially prophetic astrologers, are the ones looking into the history and the prophecies and all that shit, and trying to figure out all these dots and connect it and bring people to an understanding. Like, when I predicted in 2017 that there'd be a plague and they're going to use it and they're going to fucking lie to you and all that shit, and people look at it for me for years like I'm crazy, and then when it happens, oh shit, right? But it's like, that whole 3 years, I'm not the one giving people how to get through their shit, because I'm telling them, like, yeah, relationships are going to be this, or I'm helping understand people in timelines. That's what I'm doing. It's like, I'm the timeline guy, but the how you deal with it in between the timeline, I do the best I can. But there's so many. It gets so intricate into how to deal with these situations, and why I even think we did the show today was a recommendation from somebody who wrote, like, hey, I'd love to hear what you both think about the tower and personally how it's affected you, but how do you get through these moments? I've never thought of that before. It's not like I go that deep anyway, but that's what you do so well. You already do that in your readings.
Well, wasn't that your original idea back?
It was.
Because I called you, we talked on the phone, because first I asked you if you were interested in collaborating New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And then I think I talked to you on the phone in like February, maybe.
Yep.
And I remember that's what you said, something about talking about the cards and the consciousness about the cards and whatnot. And I think that's a really good idea, because I never even thought about a way to be able, because I mean, like, so many people look at the tarot, and I don't blame them, and they think that looks stupid.
Right.
And it's like, how do we get people to understand that it's so much bigger than just whether or not your ex is coming back?
Right.
You know, so much bigger than that.
Or especially like the tower, for example, like in tarot, just like automatically people look at it as like, oh, this is gonna be bad.
Yeah.
It's like, I think so much of this episode today was showing it's way more than just this is a bad card, this is a good card. This is it's the same thing if people hear about Mercury retrograde like we're in. Does that mean that we're not going to talk about this show? Because I think this is a banging ass show today.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you'd be stupid if you don't understand the deeper parts of a Mercury retrograde. You know, it's like one of those things that people are needing the info. And I think that the cards and the consciousness, they're the form of divinity from an ether that you can't, that is very hard to bring into a human to understand, which the tarot does. But to break it into then bring it back to that spiritual essence from that card is what most people aren't doing.
Yeah. I would probably need a little bit more of your input too on how to deal with a Mercury retrograde, because that's, to be honest, and it's like for years now, I'm not one of those people that just goes, oh my God, Mercury retrograde, it's going to be bad. Every time I'm like, okay, I got it this time. And it fucks with me. Now, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but I was born during a Mercury retrograde.
Right.
I've heard people say that if you were, it shouldn't really affect you. I don't know why, but
You told me you were a Virgo rising though, right?
yeah.
So that rules, that's Mercury rules Virgo.
Oh, I'm Virgo moon too. Moon and rising.
Okay. So, right. So, and then where's your Mercury at?
Aquarius, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you could look at it like this. One, you could look at it like your ruler of your ascendant is Mercury. So Mercury is going to be a very important planet for you to always look at, because it's the planet that represents the Time Lord of when you were born. When we took a snapshot, what was the constellation that was rising in the east? It was Virgo, and that's Mercury's home. So there's an element of when Mercury does its retrograde, which, by the way, Mercury's 88 days around the sun, and then it passes Earth every 88 days, right? And it's that pass right before it turns the corner to the sun and looks at us that we can't see Mercury. That's why it's retrograde. It looks like it's going backwards. It's faster than us.
Yeah.
So it's only a 3-week period.
Yeah.
But it's a reflection period. It's a period where if people think something with technology goes bad, it's like the signs like tarot for the tower.
Okay.
If it's in an area that's about tower situations, or it's like maybe it's going out because maybe it's time to get a new computer.
Yeah.
That's all Mercury retrograde is. It's a grain of sand, the smallest little planet going fast, and it happens the most. It's like one of those things to where it's like, these are just little things to be like, you know what? I got to make that change because I haven't been thinking about it. My mind was over here. It's making my mind go, yeah, this ain't going to work anymore. Unless I can find a solution for it, maybe I need to think about a different route about doing this. Maybe I have to it's just about taking our train of thought. If you think about the way that in astrology, from a 2D perspective, Mercury can only go so far from the sun. So that's why if somebody's in Aquarius, you're only going to see Mercury in Aquarius, Mercury in Capricorn, or you'll maybe see it up in Pisces. It's not like you're going to see Mercury fucking oppose the sun. Anybody who says that isn't an astrologer. There's no Mercury opposition to the sun, right? So, it's like the sun has its page, the closest to it, right? Its communicator. But that's our mind to our soul. If our mind were to just run amok and keep going without reflecting and stopping and taking a look back, we'd go insane. We wouldn't be living in the soul. We'd be living in the mind. So it's a moment where the mind starts reflecting inwards to look back at the soul and reflect and give it some things that the soul needs to hear, that the mind has to go, I'm not running forward and thinking in those thoughts. I've ran forward for so long. Now I'm collecting and giving you the data of what's happening. And also if it's technology, right? Like let's say, God damn it, every time this happens, my TV is happening. It's like, well, is that TV? You know, we're from the old days where you fucking hit on it or fucking, you know what I mean? Like, you know, to get it to work. It's like, maybe it's finally time that it's happening so many times in this Mercury retrograde that TV's done. You know? Or maybe somebody else needs it. Because in a Mercury retrograde, you have to pay attention to all the little things. It'll be like, oh, my daughter's best friend, her parents are divorcing and she doesn't have a computer and I need a computer, but she needs one. And this one at least does the basics. It might not be able to do the big thing I need, but here, now I have another reason to do it. It's helping somebody else out. It opens up little doorways that were not, but for you, it's extreme because being a Virgo ascendant, holy shit. It's like when things don't go in rhythm, that's what it
does this thing to my energy, dude. And sometimes it's worse than others. And trust me, every time one's coming up, I'm like, all right, I got it this time. This one's going to be cool. I got it this time. But every time it does this thing to my energy that I can't really explain. It's like I'm really, really, really hyper and motivated, but groggy and sleepy at the same time.
Is that happening on this one again?
From time to time. It's not as bad this time. There's been a couple of days where it's hit me, but there's been some times where 2 weeks straight, I'm just laying on the couch, like so hyper and itching to get up and do something. But I'm like so groggy, I want to take a nap, but I'm not tired enough to take a nap. But I'm fucking tired, but I'm not. And it just, dude. And it's like, it does that to me every time. Again, sometimes it's worse than others. And like this one actually honestly hasn't been that bad.
Right.
Hasn't really. And it affects Leah the same way. She's a Virgo moon too. We're both Virgo moons. And we both get like kind of the same thing. And I've been trying to conquer this for years now. And I've been wondering, like, what the fuck?
It's about routine. When the routine, right? Like we build routines in life, and then it's like sometimes we have to learn to let go of the routine for a little bit. So it's the agitation of like, okay, I'm doing this routine, but now what else? What to do? Or figuring something out, or I need to be figuring something out constantly. And it's like, maybe I don't need to figure this out. It's all good.
Yeah.
And you turn the mind off for a second. You have Mercury retrograde in Aquarius if you're born with it. So it's like, okay, maybe I don't have to always have the next future figured out moment of what I'm doing and putting together next. I can reflect back on what pieces are missing in stuff that I'm forgetting about that still need to get done.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know?
That makes a lot of sense because I get worried because, you know, I have to work. I have to put content on my YouTube channel or my bills won't get paid. And like, I can't, there's some days it's so bad, I can't get on camera. I'll be like, I can't even think straight. I can't even formulate my words. And then I go into a panic attack. It's like, God damn it, my check's going to be short this month. And then it just fucks with me, you know? And it makes sense though, thinking about it that way, because I love routines. I love them. Honestly, I know it sounds weird, me being an Aquarius.
No, when you have double Virgo and Virgos, you know.
I love waking up at the same time, having the same routine. I love that. And that's what was so hard about moving away from Vegas to here, was that I broke that routine, and I'd been in it for 2 straight years. And that makes sense, though. I never thought about it that way.
Well, it's because if you're a Virgo ascendant with a sun in Aquarius, the 6th house, which is the 6th sign, which is Virgo, that means that the Aquarius energy is in Virgo's house. So not only are you Virgo ascendant, but you have a Virgo moon, but you have the sun in Virgo's house. So it's like being fucking full Virgo 24/7.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like that's the whole thing is when at the routine and if something's not clean, oh shit, fucking there's something wrong. But it's like re-engineering the routine to be like, okay, if I'm in a moment where I'm fucking I can't get on camera, I feel groggy, maybe I should just do a live where I'm groggy on the bed just laughing about something and it puts out video and they might like that better.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Instead of continuing to go through if it's not this, it's about perfectionism. If the perfectionism loses a little tad bit off, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's the whole part, is about like the mind can only take so much of it figuring itself out and being perfect, right? That's what it reminds me of, a blue screen on Windows back in the day. Just like the processor just goes, and then you're doing a hard reset, and then coming on and being like, okay, it's going to work this time. It's going to work this time. And then somehow, oh my God, that's what it's you start losing that. And then it's not easy to sleep because now you're worried about what's going to happen tomorrow if you didn't do the thing from yesterday and where it's like, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe in the routine, I have to like loosen up, because that's the whole lesson is like, and especially as Aquarius is learning to disconnect, right? And be like, it's okay to disconnect for a second. Maybe all you have to do is disconnect for 20 minutes in the routine and not be exactly perfect on the routine. And then, oh, I feel better now. It's just about the mind unplugging for a second. Maybe watch TV for 10 minutes when normally, I don't know if I should. But it's like, oh, wait, I moved my mind in a different space. I got off the routine. Everything's fine. Now, I'm going to go do that right now. It's about getting out of the moment where it gets, where it gets all like, where it's going from yellow and you're redlining and you're fucking top, and then you shift the fucking gear already. Shit, Sometimes it's okay to fucking let off the gas, downshift to keep it up at speed, but you know how braking is. Like, you don't have to use the brakes when you're driving in fucking a stick or a dual clutch. You don't have to use the brakes. Sometimes it could just be about, let me downshift here, kind of coast for a second. And you're not having to apply brakes. You're still moving,
I will definitely think about that. That's fascinating. I will hold that. I never thought about it that way. Because like I said, I don't know anything about astrology. I don't know that, Virgo is Mercury and all this. And I don't know. All I know is how Virgo energy behaves.
Right.
All I know is that Virgo energy is like when I think about like Taurus energy or Virgo energy, I look at that like it's a substance. Like, oh, you were born with Aries sun. That's just like saying, oh, you just drank a 6-pack of beer. Okay, well, this is going to influence you this way. Right. If you just drink a 5th of vodka, it's going to influence you that way. And does that make sense?
Yeah, which is very important to where you bring in your great touch, right? It's like there's unique. One thing about Virgo is it represents the understanding of the fabrics of this reality and the differences in this reality. It's a mutable sign. It's an earth sign, but it's the only changeable earth sign. But that's what's interesting about Virgo is it like can create a process, right? Because it's the wheat. She bears the wheat, right? She's out in the fields and she's a worker in the fields. So she finds her system, right? Like, okay, do the wheat, put it in the thing, and da da da. And that's great. But it comes to a point where it's like that's not going to always be the thing. There's going to be somebody who calls in sick. There's going to be fucking a moment where the fucking tire pops on the fucking wagon, or the horses fucking have diarrhea. I don't know, right? To where it's like, oh, in those moments, Virgos have to figure out how to change, right? And not lose their grip. And remember that this world is ever changing. The only constant there is the planets. Everything on Earth changes constantly, right? So it's like, and then you always look at the opposite sign, like Pisces, which is go more into the imagination, find a dream, relax for a second, release. Don't get too sloppy, right? But slop it up a tad, right? Sometimes if it's like you're in bed and fucking it feels like you're in a straitjacket, you're just like, you know what I mean? It's like, let me just like kind of move it around here a little bit. It's just about giving yourself some flexibility and some room to allow yourself to breathe for a second and re-look at the situation after moving away for a second and enjoying something and then coming back and be like, oh, wait, okay, I can figure it out now, But there's a lot, way more to it. I can go on for hours, but that... Every sign, it's not that they're signs, the planets rule the signs. So if you think about Mercury, it's the fastest planet. And with Mercury, it goes around and checks every planet every 88 days. It checks in with every planet every 88 days. In an 88-day time, Mercury has said hi to every planet. So it's always wanting to check on everything all the time. Where Pluto does not come around and see every planet. It takes 248 years, right? So Scorpios take forever, right, to change. They're fixed. Or Aquarius, for example, Uranus is every 84 years. So at 42 to 44, people start having their midlife crisis point, right? It's like, I'm going to go get boobs right now to feel better. I'm going to go get a Harley to feel better. I'm going to, right, to feel more youthful again, more exciting in my life. Instead of maybe like realizing that, is that really the path? Or are we rebelling or whatever? But there's also where that, like Mars, right? For example, it's like the planet after the Earth, right? It's not on the inner planets from Earth to the sun, like Mercury and Venus. So with Mars, it's how the man works. It's the only planet that takes 2 years to retrograde. Every other planet's 18 months Venus, or then you go to Pluto 6 months. And then you start going to the other ones that are less. So it's like, of course, men will go years before taking a break. Females will do 18 months, right? But that's what's weird is Venus changes from evening to morning star every 9 months, pregnancy. Right? So they go through their moments of like every 18 months, the feminine energy has to stop for 40 days and 40 nights. That's when we don't see it during a Venus retrograde. And it's all written into who we are as people and how we are. It's all in the planets. So and every sign is ruled by a planet. So it's not the signs. It's like Aries is Aries because it's very Martian. It's red. It's wanting to take action. It wants to go to war. It wants to keep going. Doesn't want to stop. And that's why Mars retrogrades are hard for men, because then it's a 3-month, not a 40-day like females. It's 3 months of Mars retrograde where it's like, fuck. And there's always in guys' life where we go through these years where it's like, we're fucking pumping, man. And then the universe goes, fuck, I tore my ligament. I'm off for 3 months and the energy I used to have. And then we come back online. And it takes a minute for it to come back online. But that's the interesting part. And then there's years where men are the ones that are there to help females through shit. And then there's ones where females are there to help men through shit. We're in a year where now the feminine's going to go through a hard time this year. You're already seeing it with all the shit where now men who want to be fucking women and say that they know how to describe what a woman is. Look at what's happening to women today, right? The same news that we're all about, feminism and feminine rights, are now trashing them out the window. So us men have to be the one that have to fucking step in this year, because Venus is going to retrograde this year in Leo, by the way, which is all about their happiness and all about them expressing themselves, right? A female should be able to express a female, but they can't anymore. You know, now if you want to buy a crop top or whatever, it's got to be from a dude.
Yeah, they're doing that on purpose.
I know.
I think. I mean, like I said, that's another perfect example of what I was talking about how they're doing things to get people to look. Because again, remember the feminists, it was this big feminist movement. And now they're trying to show the feminists, oh, well, here's what that movement's all about. You know what I'm saying? Here's what all that indoctrination has gotten you.
Yeah.
Now, a dude can just put on a tube top and walk into your bathroom. That's what feminism is. You know, and it's making people look and go, wait a minute. And not just feminists. This is happening with every...
And people who are trans too, or people who are gay or whatever. It's everybody's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, yeah. And this is every little indoctrination that has been woven into our minds in this matrix. They're doing little things to make us step back and go, whoa, what the fuck? And it's part of the awakening, I feel like.
Yeah, and I feel like it's trying to get to the core of what humanity is. How do we get here? Who are we? Really what's been happening. And the only way you do that is you start fucking with people's matrix that they wouldn't be thinking that, because they think, oh, we're naturally here, we came from Earth or whatever and all that shit. You can't, they're slowly doing it by doing these things, right? And that's how the awakening's happening, right? Because in order for them to even see, you can't drop some crazy truth bomb on somebody if they're like holding on to everything in the matrix the way that they think it should be. But it's interesting to watch. I feel like it's an experiment too on humanity in a weird way from some way outside force that knows way more than we do. And I think our governments know it, but they won't tell us. Mm-hmm. They know way more, or they've made deals. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the craziest part is like, they're doing an experiment. And that's what I think, because even the word experiment was used more than ever in the last 3 years. That it's like, they're doing an experiment on mankind to see how will we react if we just create this fear and we do this and we do that. They did it with 9/11 too, and we all fell for it and went to the Patriot Act and gave away our freedoms. Same thing just happened again. But I think it's weird how they're doing it to where the good side is having to fight a really hard battle, but it doesn't mean it can't be lost. It's an opportunity for people to see better than ever. When the dark tries to do something bad, you use it as an opportunity. Instead of always being so afraid of the dark and what it's going to do, you be like, they're going to fuck up. It's an opportunity to get it out. Mm-hmm. So
They do keep fucking it up. Like every single time they set a trap and they fucking jump straight into it.
Yep.
And it just keeps happening over and over. And what they're doing, it is a hard battle that they're fighting, but they're reverse engineering the dark side's, like, the things that they did to brainwash everybody.
Yeah.
The good guys are getting in there and back engineering that.
I agree.
And it, I mean, because it took how many years and how many generations to program humanity into what they were 5 years ago.
Right.
And now we're having to back engineer that and unwire it and get people to, you know what I'm saying? And they're I don't know if that's a good term to
it
use,
is.
but that's what they're going through right now. And yeah, it's going to be hard, and they're trying to do it as quick as possible.
I mean, go back to the printing press in the late 1400s. You know, it had to have the stamp of the regent, the king or the queen, approval to be published, right? So it's been starting way beyond our even knowing, right? So all the history and all the things and what was able to come out and what wasn't had to have a stamp of approval, right? That's why you always see a royal seal on all that stuff. It was when people started using the printing press in their own way that they fucking started losing the grip, and that's when they started throwing more heresy and all this crazy shit and demon. You're a demon, or you're sinning, or da da da. It's like happening all over again without using the church. But I'll be honest, I think they're going to use the church again. That's why you're seeing all this at the same time, right? They're going to use oh my God, the occult, and then they did it so perfect too. They made everybody that was against freedom make it look like it's all the people on the left, and that the people on the left are into this stuff because it's liberal people are people who, I don't care what you do. Yeah. Like, I don't care what religion you're in.
It's a fake title.
Right? It's a fake title that now you throw the religious to be the ones that are representing freedom, and you throw the left as the bad people, and all the people who do spirituality or occultism or tarot are now pinned in with pedophiles.
Yeah.
Because we don't even know if it's true, but a couple unique cases that happen to be on that side that, of course, we're not demonic or do demonic shit or fucking do sacrifices or all these weird shit that they've done, like Lady Gaga and all this crazy shit, and that woman, I forgot her name, and all that crazy, like, cakes of looking like bodies and shit.
Yeah.
We're not doing that shit, but we are pinned into that now. Well, just in the last week, I just covered it on Full Disclosure this week with Natalie. Again, there's some crazy girl. Imagine this, because you're a YouTuber. Some girl tried to be an astrologer on YouTube 2 years ago. She did like 10 videos. Didn't even get more than 800 views. Then said, this is demonic, I'm going to Christ. Now, she's going on all of the big stuff. Daily Wire. Now she was just on another podcast saying, astrology and the demonic energy of astrology, right? And it's just flooding through the biblical fucking Christianity community, which is 230 million people of the 330 million people in America. That they are now doing that, right? So at the same time as the light's trying to show all this shit through a lot of these lenses, the dark's going, oh yeah, when last week the eclipse happened, I was the top astrology video. I am every year because I have the SEO. Within a day, that they knew, they used astrology. They put out the interview with her again with another guy, a podcast, saying that spirituality, the new age, or any of this shit is demonic. And that was the #1 video for spirituality and astrology.
Well, I know for a fact that they know astrology. I know it for a fact. Like I've said, on my journey, I've connected with people who are very closely connected to those who have sat in the highest positions in the world. Every last one of them has a Vedic astrologer on their speed dial. They use that for every fucking thing they do. Everything they do. They probably know more about astrology than most of us could even comprehend. They know more about manifestation than they would probably blow me out of the water. There's so much hidden knowledge, and of course they know astrology. And that comes back to the same thing that everybody's been trying to say. Do your own research then. You think it's demonic? Then come listen to what I have to say. Because that's what I do. If I start hearing this big rumor of this person that everybody hates, like Donald Trump or Andrew Tate or whoever, then I'm like, oh, well, let me go hear what they have to say. And I'll go watch them.
Right.
And I will watch and listen and watch and listen and form my own conclusion.
Right.
So
And it doesn't mean that if you like certain things somebody says, that you like them fully as who they are as a person, right? Like there's things I fucking hate about Trump, but there's things I love about Trump. Doesn't mean that, but I'm also a person where it's just like, I just don't hate somebody, right? It's just like, I don't hate somebody.
Just
It's not
'cause
like,
you're told to?
it's not like I hate Obama. You know what I mean? It's not like I hate Obama. That guy fucking helped me through when I was going through my not bridge moment, but moment when there was unemployment, and he extended it. And I used that to become where I'm at today. So it's not like I hate him. You know what I mean? It's not like I fucking walk around going, I hate Obama. That would be a weird life, you know? But it's like, you're right. It's so, the people who know, using the Pope as an example, for anybody out there that's questioning anything right now, you mean to tell me the whole time, this whole life, your grandparents' life, your great-grandparents that have been Christian, the whole time, that they've had the true cross of Jesus, what else do you think they got in there? Of course they're going to bring that out because that relates to people of Christianity. But they're not going to tell them that they have all the fucking archives, the biggest archive in the world, the biggest archival library that's fucking in glass. You can't get in there unless, of course, you have a scholar degree, but you have a intention, purpose, and spiritual purpose that the Catholic Church approves to get access to their archives, right? What else is in there? And that's not in the archive sitting up probably next to the books. They have another vault down there that has way more shit, and I have paintings from the Catholic Church pointing at, with astrologers in the Catholic Church way back in the day. They were using it. But of course, they're not going to tell the fucking public that, and I guarantee you in that vault is stuff on tarot and stuff on astrology that you and I don't even know, that we have to use everything that we got. I have to go through Nostradamus and John Dee and try and find the codes through their decoding, or Leonardo da Vinci. It's not like he fucking was just painting these pictures just to be beautiful. There was all these messages within them. People have been trying to do this this is longer than most people even realize. It's been a battle that's been going on for so long. But, you know, people at this point cannot keep buying the fucking bullshit story without questioning yourself. Like, you just think that, you know, what else do they got? The fact that nobody else is questioning that, the news just put it out like, oh, supposedly, they said supposedly, that the Pope had the true cross of Jesus and gave some splinters over. It's like, supposedly, no, that motherfucker's got that shit, knowing that if you do enough investigation, they have especially think of all the crusades that were done, and they would pillage people, towns, kill people, and take it's like, it's insane. The conquistadors and the connection to the Catholic Church and for gold and everything. They sent Christopher Columbus, and they were all part of the church and all this shit. All the real shit is fucking, these people have, and they use it. And then they tweak all the stories extremely. And even the Bible, the King James version of the Bible of 1611, you have to realize that fucking Bible was done by a fucking king that had translators do it, and then he made a book called Demonology right at the end of the 1500s because he had an experience where he got a wife, right? And she lived in Denmark, and he fucking tried to get there by boat, but because there were so many storms, he believed that witches created storms. So he couldn't get his wife, right? So he went out and created Demonology. That's the name of his first book, King James. What do you think he did when he redid the Bible in 1611? Made it so this is God. And by the way, he was gay, but puts in the Bible that nobody can be gay. Like, and nobody will ask these questions out loud, the media, and nobody will question the Pope. No, I can't believe we have a media that won't question our presidents, popes, or anybody with real questions like that shit. It's like let's stay in the matrix questions. Like, just stay on like, well, what's happening at the border or something like that. That's staying in the fucking, what's happening out of the borders of this reality that we can't see? That's the question that nobody's asking. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I know I went on a tangent, but.
No, it's cool. It's cool. That's the whole point of us doing this show. Well, at least that's my intention.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, there's a lot for us to cover in this show every Monday. And I know you have your awesome new show that you're going to be coming out with here on High Vibe. Mm-hmm. We're going to film the first episode this week. And there's just a lot that we've been talking with. It's been awesome, this collab. And just because I know that you're on the same page as me, the frequencies match to where we want to wake people up and do this work and help people, but at the same time interact with people and do stuff that is exciting and fun. If it's not fun and it's not exciting, it's not worth doing it.
Yep.
And I learned so much from you. And I know so many learn so much from you too. So
well, I'm learning a lot from you, and it's a lot to take in because I tell people on my chats all the time, you're so packed full of all this knowledge that it boggles my mind. I'll sit and listen to you and watch you running all this equipment and talking about all the planets and stuff, and I'm just like, blah, blah, blah. Damn, it's a lot to digest, but that's the reason why I connected with you. I'm very, very, very picky. Very
Same
picky
here.
Who I connect with. My circle is very, very small. For the past 4 years, outside of my wife and kids, you're only the second person I've ever connected with. That's the way we should be living this life instead of just going out making all these meaningless bullshit connections with people just to distract ourselves from ourselves.
Right.
There should be connections that add value.
yeah.
No,
and you're 100% right. I'll be honest. I mean, I've had, of course, a lot of people come through here, but what my lesson in my tower card moments were was like, okay, we're on the same frequency when it comes to wanting to do this, but not the same frequency of like, it's a must to wake the masses and talk about the masses and come together and change things. That's where I've had my lessons. But it also wasn't, it didn't flow like this. It didn't come together like this. It was also people who didn't want to really work.
Yeah. Oh, it's a business. You got to work.
You got to work. So it's been a delight. I know and how many people just like fucking love the combo and love this show. And I love doing it. You asked me that today. Do you enjoy doing the show? I'm like, fuck yeah, I love doing this shit.
Sweet. Me too.
So,
this is fun.
Well, we'll see you on Mondays. Make sure that you follow Rich. He's at Rich Lopp, of course, everywhere. And you do have a Facebook that's huge, but it hasn't been verified.
Yeah.
And you will never fucking give a reading out unless you have to buy through you. Like you don't direct message or anything.
Yeah, they got the whole silly shit with verification now where I guess it's the whole new thing where you have to buy it. Like I've been dealing with scammers and impersonators for years. Every day for the past 3 years, my inboxes have been flooded with all these fake accounts pretending to be me. And I finally I had to pay for the damn fucking check mark, but it's to keep the scammers away.
know.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, okay, well then why won't you let me put it on my page?
I know, with 113,000 people.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so I'm not going to be active on a page that's not verified. And if I don't figure out how to get that verified here this month or next sometime, I'm going to delete it because I hate to do that with that big of a following, but because these scammers are so clever that what they do is they go around and they have all the pictures of all these public figures and they just switch it up every few days and follow people.
I know.
And they rack up tens of thousands of followers.
I know.
So if somebody hits you up and it's my picture and there's 20,000 followers, you're going to think it's me.
Yep.
And then you're going to send this person money and get ripped off. And
yeah, and they're coming at the person like, oh, and I can't believe people fall for it though. I got to be real. Like the fucking Leo and me laugh so hard. I'm like, they're fucking doing like, hi, lovely, blah, 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 like with fucking fortune fucking crystal balls and fucking roses and fucking all these crazy things. Like, I'm sorry, my emoji is the fucking guy fucking with the cool glasses.
yeah.
And like the heart to my fucking fiance and like maybe a baby one or two because we're about to have a baby. But I'm not an emoji. I'm not like a crazy emoji person or the laughing one. That's it. I don't use all these other ones. I don't even know. It's too much time to even go to all those. But it's crazy on how they've got a preset though. And it's like, oh yeah, I really feel like you're going through this, and I think you should have a reading with me. Or like it's like, is it really you? And they say, yeah, it's really me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fucking, and it's not even people in America. It's in other countries. And now they have AI bots that they're just running because you could use the open AI and create a system like that and just have it fucking running on socials. It's like,
yeah. So yeah, it's the only Facebook that I have currently that I'm active on is my profile. I opened up friend requests, so anybody can send me a friend request until it gets filled up and then it cuts off. But yeah, that's how you follow me on Facebook or Instagram. And I'm not active on Twitter, really. I don't use that. It's not fun, but.
Yeah, but I mean, the main thing is your YouTube, YouTube is the only real verification.
Yeah, well, I got a real verification there.
Right, that I'm saying is because you have to fucking do the work.
Yeah.
and it's you, and they know, and they pay you, and all that shit, and they actually give you fucking a plaque, and they fucking like that's rare.
Yeah.
To me, that's a real verification of work. It's not verification because you're popular.
Yeah.
It's verification because your work that you constantly do got you to that place. You could be popular because you were on some show or something and had one video in your life, and yeah, that's it. They won't verify you unless they see all the work and the watch hours and all these things over time, and that you were producing it yourself, and that you weren't just talking about fucking other people's shit. You were doing your own original shit. That's what I like about YouTube's verification process.
Yeah, and I went back and forth with Instagram for a whole year. Nope, we can't verify you. You don't meet the qualifications. I'm like, I have a verified YouTube channel, and how many reports do you have to be flooded with?
Because I got verified, they want national news networks and stories about you.
But if you
that was the old way. Now they're changing it.
The point was supposed to be so you know this is the real person. And there's scammers pretending to be me all over Instagram. That doesn't qualify me for this. And then you have all these people, because you can buy it now. You have people who are...
Well, yeah, they copied Twitter, which I thought they made fun of Twitter, and now they're copying Elon Musk. Twitter got rid of legacy blue check marks because it was an incentive of that you're popular and that you've made it in basically Hollywood. That was what the blue check mark was, that you've made it in Hollywood.
Just status, basically.
Status. Oh. Because you had to have 8 articles about you in the media. 8 articles to get an Instagram verification.
Oh, well, that's not why I'm using it. I'm using it so that you know that if somebody comes into your inbox asking for money, it's not me. That's why.
That's why you would see somebody on Instagram with like 3,000 followers, but they were on a TV show and they had articles from them. They were verified 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, oh, well, but then nobody really cares about them. But because they're in that circle, right? Now now think of it. With the billion users between Facebook and fucking Instagram that are to get a blue check mark to be verified, just to be also, because I think they're gonna force that. Like this is the way they're doing it. Think of how much money.
Yeah.
I mean, you get a quarter of the people to do it. You get 200 million people, let's say, to fucking pay that $11 or something. I haven't even done it because I've been verified and they haven't taken it down. So I'm like, all right, I'm fine. But it's like, they'll probably do it to where they're going to force me to do it. But imagine that. 200 million people, you just get fucking 20% of those people to pay $11 a month. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The billions a month they're going to make. Without advertising.
Yeah. That's twisted, man.
But it also makes it to where if you're an advertiser, you have nowhere to go. Tarot and astrology, they stopped allowing that last year, like to advertise ads for astrology.
Oh,
and tarot.
really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I think they're actually trying to gun for the spiritual community the most.
Damn. That's like our worst nightmare, though, isn't it? Well, I guess not for you, but more for me because...
Well, no, I to be honest, that's why I predicted this, and everybody knows that I predicted it for years. I warned it was coming in 2017. I was like, censorship, and they're coming after the spiritual community because we're the only one that are going to bring the questions and the truth. That I think it's no irony that just in the last 5 days, like, of course, now you got the Pope and the King becoming best friends, which is impossible. That would have been impossible. But they are, and it's all moving to the religious is the only truth, right? Like through those doctrines and stories. And I'm not saying they're not true either. I'm just saying that there's also more that's been hidden, and there's been hidden books, and Apocrypha proves that. But anyway, it's like that. Anyway, so Rich Lopp, you're everywhere, but find that. And of course, his link is always down below. And we'll see you all next week, and we'll put out all the cool stuff for his new show coming out on High Vibe. So
awesome. Have a good one, y'all.
Adios. See you all later. Peace out. Where is this? All right. Later.